What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Shit Podcast. We're here at Ryan Dawson, man. We got some cyber attacks on us, but we're here now. Let's get into it.
Yep.
We are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Shit Podcast, man. We are here with Ryan Dawson. I am super excited for this one, guys. We're going to cover 9/11 Part 3. This shit is going to be mind-blowing what you guys are going to see. Real quick, I want to give you guys a quick apology. You guys are probably wondering, why are you guys 40 minutes late? Guys, I kid you not.
No,
they took down his website right before we were going to go live, bro. Like, and we had to scramble and get it back up and everything else like that. But yeah,
And we know who it is, right, Ryan? We know who it is.
Yeah, we know why. It was seconds before him. We had all the tabs and everything ready, and then it goes down, and we know the most likely suspects.
This guy, bro. This guy, man. Okay.
Yo, guys, rumble.com/freshfit. Get all the content there. We're gonna have to take this stream to Rumble once we start talking about a certain cell of certain people. Okay, from
100%.
Tennessee. So check us out over there on rumble.com/freshfit. Also, guys, freshfit.locals.com, where you guys can go ahead and get all the behind the scenes content with streams and everything else.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and get the merch at freshfitstore.com as well. And also, guys, do me a favor, go pick up a map on Ryan Dawson's website as well, whether it's the Epstein map, the Anthrax map, all that stuff is over there on it's ancreport.com, right? And we have the link at the top. So go get
a New Mech map too, and a Biden crime family map.
Yes.
That one, I'm gonna put that film up on Twitter in August. Is the whole thing.
Sweet.
Because a lot of crimes about Biden, I'm being careful because I know we're on YouTube, but a lot of the things that are coming out are all stuff we've known and documented for a long time.
Yep. And you actually have
By the way, solid show with Scott Ritter yesterday. That was
thank
tight.
you, man. Thank you very much. And I want to give you a thank you, Ryan, because if it wasn't for you, you wouldn't have been able to introduce me to Scott Ritter. Because I had seen his work before that when he had done pods with Gonzalo Lira, and I was like, wow, this guy is really sharp. And yeah, man. It was
well, sadly, Lira has been in prison indefinitely by Zelensky and his gang, and he'll get out. Russia's winning this war, so
okay.
But yeah, if Ritter had not been censored on everything, you would have been able to reach him easily, right? He just got his Twitter back like 3 days ago.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, and he's not allowed on anything else. Telegram, that's about it. Substack.
Also, guys,
it was a good show. It was a good show. You guys talked about Iraq, and I'm going to double down on that.
Yes.
Like I agree, but I've got some other info that y'all didn't say that I can add.
I got the real stuff, man. I got the real stuff, brother.
Also, guys, go
no,
check.
Dude, Ritter knows Iraq in and out. Nobody can just say everything like it. You know, it's too many details, but.
Yeah, we opened up with Iraq 2 on YouTube, so he knew what we can and can't talk about as well on YouTube. So
good.
But yeah, also guys, check us out on Fresh Fit Clips, and then we got another YouTube channel called More Fresh Fit Clips. It looks like we're kind of getting out of YouTube jail with our Clips channel. It was kind of taking a hit a bit, but looks we're good back to it now. And then also guys, check us out on Spotify. And then Fresh, what about your channel?
Yes, guys, for funny vlogs, man, lifestyle, and as well networking, check out the vlog channel. But we're posting next week for sure. And guys, once again, we're going to be in Colombia in July, I believe around the 18th. If you're in a network, man, we've got a special segment for you guys for adding value, giving value, networking, and girls as well. So go check it out on the SEAL Network as well. Shout out to you guys. And then
also, guys, check me out on Fed Reacts. So you guys know I've been talking cases there. I'm going to drop Ryan Dawson's New Mech documentary on Fed Reacts. We got the green light from YouTube, and also it's a documentary. It's not really just bashing.
That'll last a day.
Yeah, probably next week with timestamps and everything. It's a fantastic documentary, guys. It talks about how a certain nation stole the nuclear bomb from the United States with irrefutable declassified proof. how it was involved in John F. Kennedy's death, which we're also going to talk about John F. Kennedy on this podcast in extreme detail as well. We're going to talk about who are the players involved in Kennedy dying, being murdered, and RFK as well. And guys, it's more than one entity. Anyone that tells you it's just Harry Lee Oswald, blah, 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 they're very
stupid.
There was way more people involved, way more entities. A lot of entities wanted John F. Kennedy dead. And it's funny because RFK talked about it on the Joe Rogan podcast, but he missed out a certain portion.
He's halfway there.
What was that?
He doesn't want to get shot.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm surprised he's like still living good.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get him on the pod.
Yeah,
but that's gonna be Rumble 100. Dude, he did an interview with Peterson, Jordan Peterson.
Gone.
They took that shit gone.
Yeah,
because he has very strong views on. Basically, they take his videos down on medical information with the beer bug shit.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
The Mexican beer.
Yeah,
the
Mexican beer.
The Mexican beer.
Is that the Mexican beer?
That's messed up, bro. No, but like if you challenge anything,
oh man, ask me on Rumble. Do you know how to say that in Japanese? It ends up being the Mexican beer thing. I can't say what it is,
Yeah.
But the way they ask me afterward.
All right, we'll ask you
once we go to the free speech platform. I got a good one for you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
that's an old lady. You were gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna.
Well, just go look up how to say 19 in Japanese on your own on the phone or whatever.
A lot of the conspiracy people that like tell the truth are somehow just like gone, bro.
Yeah,
they
was trying to
disappear.
That was the first one out on all those platforms.
As well.
So Ryan,
2005 banned on MySpace and AOL.
Yeah, I don't
banned
know
on YouTube in 2008.
On MySpace.
Yeah, bro.
AOL, what the fuck? Thinking you a terrorist?
Got kicked off Daily Motion. Got kicked off of Live League. Got kicked off of PayPal, Patreon, all the YouTube, Twitter, Meta, all that stuff. Like even Google Video censored me. Vimeo censored me. Yeah.
But now you're here.
That's right. This is where all the black sheep come. Have you been banned? Go to Fresh and Fit.
What the fuck, Ryan? You can't say it out loud.
Yeah, that's true.
Just kidding.
No, Ryan, we know who you are, but the audience might not know who you are. Can you introduce yourself to the people and what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I'm a historian, geopolitical analyst. I make films like what Myron was referring to, NUMEC, which is it's an acronym for Nuclear Material and Equipment Corporation. So I've been making documentary films on the Iraq War, the Syrian War, Ukraine. I'm working on one on that. And I interview and do podcasts like Myron does to people like Scott Ritter, Larry Johnson, all these hard hitters. And I end up getting banned on everything. I've written a few books. Most recent one is called The Separation of Business and State. It's still on Amazon, knock on wood. I used to work for Sibel Edmonds, who is a FBI translator, who got a gag order placed on her as well, and she's been highly censored as well. And I really think like the people getting kicked off everything, the people getting blanket banned, like the Tates, it's whenever you get too close to the sun, you get the yay treatment.
Icarus.
Yeah, but I got banned way before anybody, and there was no pretext given or anything, and they'll defame you and harass you and write dumb stuff about you. And because you don't have a social media, you can't even defend yourself. So it gets to the point where, if you Google me, there's all kinds of nefarious things. None of them are true. I won't even say what I've been accused of because that's bannable on YouTube too. But, a certain event in World War II that no one's allowed to talk about. I get accused of being in with that group. It's not true. But this is what they do. Like if they can't find a chink in your armor, they can't say where your message is wrong. They just go after your character, right?
Yep.
They've done that to Ritter too. They've done that to so many people. They do that to RFK too. They call him a denier of a certain thing, and it's just because they don't like his medical opinion on something.
Yep.
Right. If it's hard for me to explain what I do or what I've gotten in trouble for because YouTube won't let you talk either. Mm-hmm. There is no free speech in the United States. Like without Rumble and I guess to a degree, Elon's Twitter, there's no major platform. There's Odysee and Bitchute. Bitchute doesn't live stream. They don't super chat. It's just very few things, but it is and has been free market solutions to the rescue. They did not mess around with Section 230. They did not enforce antitrust laws. No one can sue Google from YouTube, right? They total violation contract law because they'll say, here's the TOS. You can't do these things. You don't do those things. They just say you do anyway. There's no jury or anything because it goes to the Trust and Safety Committee, which is also YouTube. And like, well, we investigated ourselves and decided to get rid of you because we don't like what you're saying. Yep. They ought to just be upfront about it and say, you have to toe the government line on these subjects. You know, the Mexican beer, this war, this historical event. You know, and September 11th is another one of these things. They let all the goofy stuff on there. They put the Jonestown, loose change, all that. That's on Netflix, right? If it's retarded, you can say it. But if you're accurate, then you're going to get banned.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're going to do a show on that, just debunking these people that think the Pentagon got hit by a missile and stuff like that. Yes. Get bent, dude. Like, if you deny airplanes and you deny hijackers, then you have erased the paper trail back to the states that were involved in the event.
Wow. And that's the best way to put it. And I will say this, and a big reason why I like your work so much, which we're going to cover this more when we get on Rumble, is you're the only guy that talks about 9/11 and a certain location being involved, which no one else wants to do. Everyone, I mean, hell, even, you know, Alex Jones is scared to mention that certain place. So you talk about it, and not only
he's compromised,
you bring the proof out, you know what I mean, with what the hell really went down on 9/11. So real quick, Ryan, we've done 2 episodes so far on 9/11 where we went over a bunch of things. If we could just do a quick little bird's eye view recap, and then we'll get into today's topic, because we got a couple of things. We're going to cover a sellout of Tennessee, guys. We're going to cover the 9/11 Commission. We're going to cover Anthrax, and we're going to cover
FBI foreknowledge.
And then FBI foreknowledge on the situation. So real quick, if we could give a fast.
Okay, so we have already covered in previous episodes, and you can check them out on Rumble, Fresh and Fit's Rumble.
Yep.
Is we went over, can I say that? The Saudi cell? I think that's safe. There were government actors, intermediaries that the state of Saudi Arabia used to help finance 9/11 hijackers, acquire housing for them, logistical support. And so super quickly that went back to Bandar Bush and his wife, went to 2 intermediaries, Hassan Basnan and Omar Bayoumi, who threw money into Nawif al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midhar, who were on Flight 77. Yep. Okay. And there's a bunch to that.
About this yourself, guys.
We covered the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, as well as the theft of Anthrax from Fort Detrick back then, which is important, and the story of Philip Zachariah and the truck bombing, and the stories of Ramzi Youssef and KSM. And that's important because KSM's a mastermind of 9/11. His nephew attacked the World Trade Center. There was a dry run also done by the Saudis in 1999. He went over those individuals and the Al-Qaeda recruiter and and then we got into a different foreign country, we'll just say, and how one of the pilots for Flight 93 had 2 first cousins in a foreign intelligence agency, not saying which one, just, you know, our greatest ally, let's say. And we went over the jiggling juice, where you had these people dancing and high-fiving and celebrating the attacks of September 11th. And they had maps highlighted from Doric Towers in the World Trade Center. They've been witnessed, you know, at this location on September 10th and September 7th. They had a party in Brooklyn on September 10th. Their owner fled back to foreign country A. There was Homer Bendor, who is a, let's just call him an artist, like a student of art or something, and how they were spying on the DEA and expanded this ring into following these 9/11 suspects around. They gave them logistical support. There's a really damning piece from the Miami field office communicating with the Newark office, saying that Bleepity Bleep, which is one of the hijackers, actually got a ride from Classic International Movers, which is tied to Urban Moving Systems and other front organizations for foreign country A.
Bleep, bleep, bleep.
We got it. We got into the plane that almost added to the 4 planes that attacked. There was a 5th plane, Flight 23, that was on the ground and had hijackers on it, but because they grounded all the planes on 9/11, that one never went through. They tried again on September 13th, got arrested. 9 of the 10 were released, unexplained, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw CIA foreknowledge, how they had followed 2 9/11 hijackers to a Al-Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia.
Yep.
Where they met and stayed with KSM, and then they did not share that information with the FBI.
Yep.
Then they claimed, oh, we shared it in August. No, they didn't. They never shared it. And we know this from Private Manning League, Operation Encore, the unredacted 28 pages adds to it as well, the GIS report. And then there's the 9/11 Commission, which we didn't really talk about because it was such a farce. But that's the one that Jonestown and all focused on. And people are reading the commission report, which is about as valid as the Warren Commission, even involved some of the same people. But the joint inquiry by the Senate was a good one. But better than that were the 302s I got, the FOIAs on the interrogation of the guys that were celebrating from a certain country. That opened up a huge, once you had their names, it opened up this huge spy ring. Over 200 of people from foreign country A got arrested in this giant spy ring. And it was in tandem where they had art students who were spying on the DEA, protecting their ecstasy run because you need black budgets for black ops. And then in combo with that, you had these moving companies that were shielding and protecting the hijackers, as well as foreign countries A's espionage. They have a system to stay ahead of wiretaps on suspects. And I gave a case about 1997 as an example where they, in LA, where that actually got uncovered, where organized crime were being tipped off by this state that we're not allowed to say on YouTube. It's so ridiculous. Fuck YouTube, by the way. Like, you can't talk about foreign espionage and crime because it's from the privileged class. Like, so ridiculous. Oh, I heard is this your last day of well, I won't say that. I'll wait till Rumble.
Yeah, does that pretty much sums up where we left off?
But that's a lot of, and there's so many details and everything I just said.
You can always go back. Look at it yourself.
Watch those episodes with the timestamps. But in general, we talked about.
I went over each guy. We went over Paul Kurzberg and Sivan Kurzberg and Yarn Schmel and Elner and Amari and like what they said and how their timelines don't match up, and really damning piece of information when they say come up to the top of urban moving systems. They are about to take down the second tower.
Yeah.
We also got into the eyewitness accounts from the police, from the fire chief, and from the mass media on the day of 9/11, talking about truck bombs in the building.
Yep.
As well as secondary explosions.
Yep.
And we're going to get in today who had access to those towers and got caught and went to prison and got released. It's amazing. But this is a nation that stole nuclear weapons from the United States. So imagine you say, oh, why would they ever be so brazen to do something like that? They did a far greater crime in stealing nuclear weapons. Effectively started the entire Cold War. I mean, this country is not our ally, and we do not go in things in our interests. And we went to war for them in Iraq. It was not about oil. It's not because they actually thought they were WMDs and oops, there weren't any. It wasn't any of that. Saddam was a threat to foreign country A. And when we get on Rumble, I'll be allowed to explain that and prove that case without getting your channel erased.
Bam.
They took her job.
Okay.
Technology.
All right. So let's go ahead and what we're going to start off with on YouTube, guys. We're going to cover the 9/11 Commission first. Okay. So the attack happens. Can you tell the people what the 9/11 Commission was first, and then we'll get into the video that you have on it?
It was a joke. I mean, it was supposed to be an investigative committee. It was very public, and it's weird because there wasn't just one investigation into September 11th. Like I said, there was the joint inquiry by the Senate, which did a much more thorough investigation. The problem is they redacted all the juicy stuff, and it took until about 2015 or so, 2014, to get some of that unredacted. And then it's been reports from people like myself, Justin Raimondo, Mike Rivero, that were digging up and piecing together this police report and that report. And there was some media, none of it like had the whole story, but when you could piece it all together, right? But the 9/11 Commission had all the fanfare. They had a book, they had a graphic novel, cartoon, and it was this Thomas Keane, Lee Hamilton, the co-chair of the Tower Commission for Iran-Contra. The other co-chair was, right? It was the head of the DOD at the time. His name was Dick Cheney. He was the vice president on 9/11. But yeah, and it was pretty bad. It wasn't useless though. I mean, 9/11 Commission did. I don't think it was intentional, but they did release some information that was useful if you had other information to match it to. But it was pretty much a farce. And that's that. They interviewed Bush and Cheney together so that Bush wouldn't screw it up.
Yep.
They didn't address Building 7 at all, which could at least been a page. They didn't do a lot of things, and they didn't do all the stuff I just said is not in there. Right.
Yeah. Of course not.
It's like it pretty much just said, yeah, Osama bin Laden and these guys pull this off all by themselves and no one knew about it at all.
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
Yeah, definitely not. Let's go ahead and you want us to pull up your ANC report on this?
Yeah. Well, we can. I think it's kosher, right? Yeah. I censored the words.
Yeah.
You can pull that up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to add something to what Ritter said. And I have this one from Forbes as well. If you look at my screen, you can see this.
Oh, yeah.
Blank importing 77% of its oil supply from Iraqi Kurdistan. This is Financial Times. I also have Forbes. There's Jerusalem Post. It's not a secret. 3/4 of the oil, not to the United States, but to some other country that benefited from the Iraq War. And I think I gave you a graphic of this as well. But if you look at the import export, because everyone says it was for oil, bro. It's like it was not for our oil. This is the import export thing. And if you could look at it, do you have a tab for that?
Yeah, I think Mo, we have a tab for that.
Was cool. I mean, I'm not making this up. People can pause this later. You look at 2002, right? 30,000 barrels, 1925, 1814, like that. 2003 is the war. 2004, 5, it's the same 20, 23, 20, 19. It doesn't really change. There's this and the 0 because that's the mid-conflict. But and they also shipped a lot to China. So it's like there was already the oil for food program between the two wars. It was not about the petrodollar. They invaded Iraq in the first Gulf War before the euro existed. It wasn't like, Saddam's about to go to the euro instead of the dollar. It had nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with importing oil from Iraq. And it wasn't to prevent them from just selling oil to someone else. It was to acquire the oil for foreign country A, and it was because Saddam was aiding Palestinians and some other reasons that I can't say because we're on YouTube, but it all relates to that place. They wanted to get rid of him. And when you look at who lied about the war, right? If you look at the Office of Special Plans, we'll get into that later too. It wasn't Exxon. It wasn't the oil companies. They actually lobbied against it. They didn't want it. They didn't want this instability. It was Douglas Feith. It was Richard Pearl. It was Paul Wolfowitz. It was Louis Leibowitz, also known as Scooter Libby, right? It was, Elliot Abrams. These people, specifically from the Project of New American Century, William Crystal, Robert Kagan, these are the Gary Schmidt. They're the ones lying about Iraq WMDs, William Safire, right? They're the ones. We're going to get into this again specifically about what all those guys actually said and wrote, right? That's why we went to war in Iraq, right? Sapphires has said he always got chemical weapons under his palaces. That was a lie, right? And Michael Ledeen, he's the one with Bonifar lying about yellow cake uranium. And I actually have printed French, the document there showing how they had obsolete military seals, got the dates wrong, forged the wrong signature on it. They had an obsolete foreign minister who signed a document that he couldn't have signed because he wasn't even there. It was just so sloppy, these lies. And, Cheney went on and said that he's reconstituted his nuclear weapons program. Condoleezza Rice goes out and says we can't let the smoking gun be a mushroom cloud. We got to get them over there before they get us here. Y'all remember it all through 2002, 2003. They're lying. And it was a cabal of neocons of the hardcore Zionist ideology that wanted to topple Saddam in the Ba'athist regime. He was talking about pan-Arabism because it was a threat to the local hegemony of a certain state in the Middle East that isn't Arab. Just say that. Or Persian. It's not that either.
So let's hit. So let's open up the 9/11 Commission stuff real quick, and then guys, we're gonna have to switch over to Rumble here probably in the next within the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Just get ready. If you guys want, go on there now, rumble.com/freshandfit. I see that we got like already 5,000 plus y'all over there on Rumble, and we got like another almost 3K you guys here on YouTube.
Yeah.
Rumble live link in the top.
Yeah, Rumble live link at the top, because we are going to have to transition over to give you guys the full sauce. And once we get to the full sauce, you guys are going to see some mind-blowing shit, especially with the Tennessee stuff.
Oh yeah, no one knows that. No one covers that ever, and I don't know why.
You're the only person that's covered the Tennessee stuff. Fresh, I don't even think you know about this shit.
I don't.
Okay,
but
you're going to be.
I am stoked about the Anthrax. I want to know that so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think the Anthrax is the most important part of this case.
Okay. All right, so go ahead, walk us through this, Ryan. You said the 9/11 stuff, and then obviously this ties back to what
you got the 9/11 Commission. It has some glaring conflicts of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys remember, but initially they wanted the head was supposed to be Henry Kissinger. And the reason he declined is not because he has zero credibility because he's just a warmongering lunatic and such a hardcore Zionist. It's because he didn't want to reveal who his clients were. That was one of the conditions he had to do to be on the panel. So he turns it down. But the guys that end up running it are equally as bad, but less well known. Kissinger is a sort of a famous, like Soros. He used to be, before George Soros really started pumping up around 2013 or so, Kissinger was the household name of like Satan, basically. So he turned it down. But I've got some video clips from Empire Unmasked, which I know are old and abused, but we're remastering that whole film. But there's a quick, I think it's like 7 minutes that goes over it, because I think the visuals are important for you to see these people. And and then I will add some things after that, because you can't put everything in a movie.
Is that here in this link right here?
It is. It's right underneath the
okay, Mo, open it up.
The 77% thing.
Okay, Mo, open it up and let's show.
Just scroll down a little bit. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Bam. All right.
Yeah.
How to escape the heat if you don't have an air conditioner.
The Rumble commercial.
It only takes 5 minutes.
Shout out to Rumble.
But why would the president of the United States not want 9/11 to be investigated? He battled with Tom Daschle, majority leader of the Senate and an anthrax target, about who would conduct an investigation. It wasn't until more than a year later that he conditionally permitted it. The conditions were that the Bush administration selected the commission heads, who then selected and controlled the commission. It's a little bit like hiring Dracula to guard the blood bank. It would be like hiring Madoff to investigate fraud. You might as well have a former head of the CIA investigate the Kennedy assassination, or have Boris Yeltsin investigate Boris Berezovsky. Wait, those last two actually did happen. Bush's first pick to chair the 9/11 Commission was Henry Kissinger, upon the advice of Karl Rove. Henry Kissinger, a crook with a rap sheet so long and involved in disastrous covert operations and lies that no one could take him seriously. He resigned not because of that, but because he didn't want to disclose his clients. Because of the obvious conflicts of interest and the utterly negative credibility, Kissinger finally removed himself from the position. That didn't stop his less well-known business partner from making the cut, James R. Thompson. An interesting phenomena occurred on 9/11 where individuals using the Israeli-based instant messenger service Odysee were warned about 9/11 before the attack. At least 2 individuals came forward about the warnings they had received. Certainly bin Laden wasn't warning these Americans to avoid the towers. Someone else had prior knowledge. Hollinger Inc. and Hollinger Digital owns Onset Tech, which cooperates with the messenger software of Odysee as well as Converse. When you pull up the board of directors for Hollinger, you'll find some nefarious characters. Henry Kissinger, Richard Pearl, and James R. Thompson from the 9/11 Commission. With Thompson on the 9/11 Commission, you can be damn sure they didn't look into Odysee. It was Hollinger-owned papers also that spread the bogus rumor about 4,000 not showing up to work on the day of 9/11. This served to obfuscate the very real forewarnings from Odysee by masking it as pointless anti-Jewish rhetoric. Hollinger would later be used by Pearl to bolster his Iraq war investments, and then it had a large scandal with Conrad Black, of which Thompson was also a part of. He ended up not doing.
Hey, pause for a second. Pause for a second.
What you put a bell there, man? That's funny, bro. You put a bell right
This
there.
this is vital though, because Odysee, you guys remember back in the day, AOL Instant Messenger?
Yeah.
That used to just be how people would chat, right? Well, had their own, the state of hell, ISIS, Rael, whatever. They had Odysee, and it was kind of like their AIM. And a couple of employees that worked in the World Trade Center received warnings before the attack saying, don't go to work, don't go in the building. Right.
Wow.
And then I was showing with Converse that Hollinger, so Hollinger is a media conglomerate in Canada, and they're in this scandal with Conrad Black that I just blew through, and who ends up being an Epstein guy. But anyway, they have a board of directors, and it's got Kissinger and James R. Thompson and Richard Pearl. Richard Pearl's a spy for Dim Boys in the 70s. He works in the DOD. He'll be the architect of the Office of Special Plans. He's in PNAC. He wrote Dim Boys Clean Break paper. He's just a piece of, they call him the Prince of Darkness, right? These three are there. Hollinger owns Jerusalem Post. Jerusalem Post comes out with this story saying 4,000 Jays didn't go to work. It's not true. But there were a few that didn't because they received warnings. There only needs to be one. Because if Odysee is warning anybody to say, don't go to work, there's going to be an attack, then somebody knew about it before Al-Qaeda pulled it off.
Wow.
Somebody.
Right. Wow.
Somebody.
Okay.
And then they ran, like, these are the guys one of the guys on the 9/11 Commission, right, who's on the board of Hollinger that worked in tandem with Converse that owned this company that's warning people not to go there. And he spoke, because do you think he let any investigation go into Odysee? Hell no.
And that was owned by, and that's their version of AIM.
Oh, yes, they run that. Absolutely.
Okay, and that was their version of AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, where they were able to notify, hey, don't go.
And guys, you newbies, like Zoomers, you don't know how big AIM was. Like, back in the day, America Online was the internet, really.
Yes.
I mean, I got banned on that too. And AOL Instant Messenger is just what people had. Because you couldn't just text on a phone yet, right?
Yeah.
So that's how people would send messages was from a computer, and they used that. And so, yeah.
Ryan, was
Odysee is one of those.
Find information about Odysee like within, for example, someone from Insight could like leak it, or they would never do that?
I think what happened was people got forewarned, and there just happened to be some overlapping names. Like these two guys had the same name as someone else, and they ended up with a message. Probably a lot of people got warned and didn't say anything, but two of them went to the authorities and say, hey, I got this message on my ALE message service saying not to go to the World Trade Center today. Yeah. And then it gets blown up and, hit with airplanes. And they honestly were like, I don't know why I got warned. But whoever did it saved my life. But how did this company know, and who was it from, and why didn't they go, where'd the message come from? And why didn't that certain state that owns that that company go through and figure out who sent the warnings? They had no interest in doing that, but it's something else. They're like, they didn't warn everybody, right? They let the cattle, let's say, die, but they warned each other.
Wow. All right, so this is what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and kill the Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook stream. We'll stay on YouTube for a little bit longer to go through this 9/11 thing, but you guys can see here the clear conflict of interest between certain people, right, and reporting the truth in the 9/11 Commission. And these guys were all on the board of the 9/11 Commission, which explains why so much information was left out of the 9/11. They didn't address Building 7. They didn't address some of the other nefarious links to certain country A.
They didn't get into how they got financed or anything. It was just guys from caves with box cutters. we've only gone over Kissinger and part of James R. Thompson, but it gets worse.
All right.
And what I'm saying in this little 7-minute clip is so rich with information. It should have been on TV. It should be reported. Let's get Tucker behind this or something. But no one covered this, including Jonestown, right? They're just out there talking about Larry Silverstein, pull it or whatever, right? Like, this is damning information.
Yeah.
And there was nowhere to go with it.
Yeah.
Because they'll censor you.
Wow.
Yeah. People that were on the 9/11 Commission had interests of another state instead of the United States, which is wild. The conflict of interest. All right, let's keep going with this thing, guys. This is crazy stuff.
Infiltration.
Yeah.
Here. But not to be outdone by that audacious selection, for the commissioners, the Bush administration topped itself in see-through corruption by choosing Iran-Contra's Tower Commission chairman, who worked with Dick Cheney, to co-chair the 9/11 Commission as well. I guess if you do well with one whitewash, then why not another one? Hamilton was also sitting on advisory boards for the CIA. But don't worry, they could still go lower. Much, much lower. Even worse than Hamilton becoming the co-chairman was placing a Zionist warmonger, Philip Zelikow, who was plucked right out of Bush's own National Security Council to be the executive director for the commission. Zelikow would have total control over hiring the 9/11 commissioner's staff and set up a tight filtering system over information sharing that went right through himself or Hamilton.
Holy shit!
One of his first actions was to hire Michael Hurley, a current officer in the CIA, to investigate the CIA. He also echoed the neocons' propaganda about Iraq.
Pause. He investigated the Pan Air flight, and I just remembered, like, that is what got Jeffrey Epstein in trouble when he was working at Tower Financial with Hoffenberg, was that affair with Lockerbie and da-da-da-da. That didn't come to me till just now watching my own documentary, because I hadn't known that. Oh man, God, it just comes full circle. So yeah, you got the CIA investigating itself. Zelikow sets up a filter, and he gets to hire whoever. I mean, this is the classic them bottlenecking, right?
Yeah.
Right. You don't need, in a conspiracy, you don't need to control everything. Like, you don't need to control the media. You just need the editors, right? If you have the editors, doesn't matter what you came up with, because we're not going to put it in the story, right? That's all you need. This is his bottleneck commission. He's the controller, and all he cared about was foreign country A. He's like, hey, you're supposed to be investigating the attack on the United States. Remember that, September 11th? Nah. All he wanted to do was figure out, hey, how can we associate this with Iraq and go to war with Iraq, who had nothing to do with 9/11 or Al Qaeda? That's what he was there to do.
That's part of
it. It amazes me how so many Americans don't know that Bin Laden and Saddam actually hated each other.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there was zero connection whatsoever. Bin Laden wanted to go to war with Saddam Hussein for Saudi Arabia, but like, no one knows. None of this is public knowledge. So it's crazy.
Isn't it funny though?
Yeah.
You could do the bell.
Oh yeah, I got you.
Them boys put somebody in that association or environment that works for them, and then the whole thing is corrupted. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. Yo, how many times have we had to hit that bell of the show, man? Okay, we'll finish this clip and then we'll go to Rumble.
I mean, when you get into the 9/11 Commission or 9/11 itself, it's basically like a freaking fire alarm.
I mean, you see all these individuals were involved in the 9/11 Commission that might not necessarily have American interests first. Let's finish this clip and then we'll go over to Rumble.
Yeah.
All right.
How pathetic for the 9/11 Commission's executive director to parrot the baseless Iraq did 9/11 deceptions. It wasn't new for Zelikow. It was an opportunity to promote his worldview. In their book on the lobby, Mersheimer and Walt exposed Zelikow for calling for war with Iraq to protect Israeli interests in speeches that he gave to universities.
You want to rewind that because you kind of talked over it. Rewind a little bit.
The thing that is. Yo, this nigga, bro. This nigga, man.
Fuck, bro.
Nigga put a bell there. This guy, bro. Yo. Yeah, you should be a comedian, bro.
They make it ridiculous, you know, like they make me have to do this stuff.
Play more.
That's the lobby.
And will expose Zelikow for calling for war with Iraq to protect Israeli interests in speeches that he gave to universities. Zelikow would later admit as much with a so what attitude. Apparently, he forgot the 9/11 Commission was to investigate an attack on America and not to be a tool for his interest. No one was really looking into 9/11. They were looking into how to use it. There was one dissenter in Zelikow's way, a staff member that slipped through the cracks, Donna Lesman. Breaking Zelikow's filter protocol, Lesman dug into the direct 9/11 connections with the government of Saudi Arabia. Zelikow fired her and had her findings deleted from the 9/11 Commission's report.
Fired her.
She asked how a Saudi GIT agent working with the FBI was providing housing and actually living with 9/11 hijackers.
National security whistleblowers tried to testify before the commission, but were either not asked to testify or their testimony was only barely acknowledged, or worse yet, completely omitted from the record.
Zelikow was later revealed to be the real author of the Bush Doctrine, the justification of preemptive war, which has led to the deaths of more than 1 million people so far.
Zelikow was the author of a very important document issued by the White House in September 2002 that really turned military doctrine on its head and said that the United States could become involved in preemptive war, preemptive defense, that we could attack a nation that didn't pose an immediate military threat to this country. And obviously in September 2002, it sure appeared that that document was being written with one target in mind, Iraq. Now, as I say, the author of the document at the time was anonymous. We didn't know that Philip Zelikow had written this thing. And that becomes known, I think, widely on the staff only in the final months of the 9/11 Commission investigation. And it appeared to pose yet another conflict of interest for Zelikow.
Thomas Keane, the other co-chairman of the commission, was there about as often as Obama went to the Senate. He was too busy engaged in his own personal profiteering racket. He said he could only commit 1 day a week to the commission and would only appear in the press if it was with Hamilton. Apparently, investigating 9/11 was not important enough for him to postpone his other affairs, and this allowed Hamilton and Zelikow even more control over the operation. Like James Thompson, Thomas Keane was too involved with his own scandals. What excellent choices for investigators. It's not like 3,000 people were killed. Keane later promoted and was greatly impressed with the comic book version of the 9/11 report, which reduced it down to about 161 picture pages. And he's currently still going around the country hacking this junk into school systems to get elementary school kids even to learn about 9/11.
When you hear about the idea of the 9/11 Commission report as essentially a comic book, your first reaction is, what are you, crazy?
It's accurate. I mean, the graphic version is accurate. That's what happened.
Bruh. All right.
Okay.
That was really funny. I was actually in tears during that. Yeah.
Well, the second half on the rest of the commission you cannot put on YouTube. Just saying. But that's something else there. Philip Zelikow, when Donna Lesman was uncovering about the Sheikh, right, and she was getting close to Miami as well, he just fired her. And then redacted everything she came up with.
And this is, I mean, this later ended up becoming declassified with the Saudi Arabian links, but she ended up coming close to it, and they were like, no, we don't. Because
yeah, I mean, the same information gets dug up by the Senate. And there were FBI field offices that, you know, they figured out too late, right? There's so many warnings and screw ups. And look, a lot of it really was incompetence.
Yeah.
It wasn't all like benevolence or something, but it's not all incompetence.
Yeah.
I mean, they straight up got warnings sometimes, which we'll talk about on Rumble too.
Okay.
And they just didn't act on it. And, you know, it's in their own budgetary interest for there to be a disaster now and then. I mean, this is kind of a problem, a flaw in, you know, capitalism works very well for if you're selling t-shirts or shoes, whatever. But if you have an industry like the medical industry or the weapons industry where sickness or war or something horrible is how you make profits, they are minimal will look the other way. right? Or even orchestrate things, orchestrate conflicts, or perpetually have you, I'm not going to get into mental health and all that, but we did not have everybody on all these pills 20 years ago, right?
Oh.
And so this is just kind of a flaw in how this shit works. The FBI is like, oh man, we could replace they're looking at it saying, we need something to replace the Cold War, right? To justify all the trillions in spending of the war on terror. I mean, you blow up a couple of buildings in New York, you can go invade whoever you want. You want to go to Afghanistan, you want to go to Iraq, the public's not going to say anything. You just got your 2 front teeth knocked out, right?
Yep.
And there was a lot of information about bin Laden in his cell. Both the CIA knew, the FBI was also told, not by the CIA, but by informants, right? It didn't matter. And local law enforcement had the wool pulled over their eyes because foreign country A has their wiretaps and would tip off the suspects.
And we talked
Mark
about
Grossman Mark Grossman from the State Department also knew something with the ATC and Pearl and Wolfowitz. Wolfowitz, by the way, worked with Zelikow on that paper. I mean, it's just, yeah, like I got to be careful. Like I feel safer once we get off of YouTube.
Yeah. So this is what they do, though. They legit create a problem, and they create a solution for that problem to gain control. Yep. So the maxim basically is, out of chaos comes order.
Yep.
So that's what they do basically with everything.
So this
one, Emmanuel, never let a chaotic event go to waste, right?
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah. All right. So guys,
Emmanuel,
come on over right now to rumble.com/fresh affair. We're going to switch over now because we're going to cover the other part of the 9/11 commission. But just so you guys know, I mean, look at who was on the 9/11 commission board, right? A bunch of people from a certain place, right? And they're the ones calling the shots. And then if you look at the 9/11 commission report, so much information was missing. So,
I encourage you guys, if you think something is false here, do your own research yourself and then follow what Ryan's saying too, just to clarify, because it is truth.
And a lot of the things he's showing you guys is stuff that became declassified way later after the fact, 20 years plus later. Yeah, people aren't going to have as much interest in 9/11. But back in 2004, when they released this 9/11 commission report, it had holes all over it. Yeah. So, and didn't talk about a bunch of stuff. But all right, guys, come on over right now to YouTube.
The victim families were enraged. Go to Rumble, and add the app.
Guys. Come over right now. Rumble.com/fresh.
3, 2, 1.
Come.
Rumble. We're here. We're back.
All right. We're on Rumble now. We're safe. Go ahead, Ryan. You can unleash, my friend.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, too, like, look, Zionists are not the Jews, okay? It's Jewish supremacy. It's a political ideology, and it is something that the state of Israel promotes. They are deeply embedded in the United States in blackmail rings, organized crime, bribery. They do nothing but there's no return on this friendship. The U.S. gives them all this money, right? $4 billion a year. And the only thing Israel gives in return is more demands. And these guys, the Zelikows, the Kissingers, these people, the entire Office of Special Plans, these are Jewish supremacist Zionists, and they wanted a war with Iraq. And they figured out a way to associate Iraq to September 11th. And we did go to war in Iraq on false pretext by these people. And Israel ends up getting 3/4 of its oil imports from the annexed territory from Kurdistan in Iraq, which they had lost. And, like, same thing in Syria. If you look at the BTC pipelines, which deliver gas and oil from the Caspian region to avoid that the OPEC weapon from Azerbaijan, it goes from Baku all the way down to a port in Turkey, and then it goes through Israel, not the Suez Canal. It went through Israel, set itself up as the middleman, not only to import oil from Iraq, but to take that Caspian Sea oil and be the final nexus before it got sent to Asia. So when you're the middleman in a pipeline, that greatly benefits you economically, right?
Bam.
Why wasn't it going through Egypt? Well, Mubarak was paid off by the United States. They have revolutions there. The moment that was reopened, you saw a coup d'etat in Libya because Libya was going to send its oil directly to China. Said, no, you can't do that. This is all in Empire Unmasked, by the way.
Yeah.
However, that thing got deleted, and it was like it ended up becoming a copy of a copy of a copy because they kept erasing it off of everything. So we're going to remaster the whole thing, and we've got a gibsongo.com/911 for that. Yeah.
Look at the top description. So Ryan, let's
It's
get
a 5-hour film, but it gets all into 9/11, Iraq, like all this stuff about the Saudis, the bombs, like all the stuff we've covered on Fresh and Fit for like it's probably 6 hours worth of stuff already is in that movie.
Yeah.
And it's going to be better since we have to redo it anyway. The audio will be better. The visuals are going to be way better. We're already started working on it, but yeah, and I want to put it out for free. Like once it's financed, I just let everybody see it. Because now there's a place to put it, Rumble. I mean, before, why would anybody do all that work and then it gets deleted in 2 minutes, right?
Yep.
It's not worth it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go back to the 9/11 Commission part. Is where did you want us to go here next?
Yeah, it's just the video right under that, I believe. It was Fred Fielding. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I want to make sure that we have enough time. We already got 7:30, so let's go through this stuff nice and systematically. So go ahead, let's run the clip.
Are we crushed on time? Do I need to?
You don't have an air conditioner.
We got till 9. Yeah.
This only takes 5 minutes.
How could they compromise the integrity of the investigation further? What could make it even less objective? Fred Fielding, a current lawyer for Z, better known as Blackwater, a private mercenary firm currently on trial for murder and rape. This bastard actually countersued the families of the contractors' victims hung from a bridge in Fallujah to block them from gaining access into the circumstances surrounding the event. The details of what really happened are uncovered in Jeremy Scahill's book, Blackwater, Rise of the Mercenary State. Fielding wasn't the only important investigator working with Blackwater. The Inspector General, who was supposed to let the other shoe drop on Hollinger and Richard Pearl, also found employment at Blackwater as a senior executive. Fielding was from George Bush's White House counsel. But don't worry, he was compromised further than that. He was a lawyer for a very high-level man in the Bush administration. You may have heard of him. His name is George Bush. It's bad enough that Bush refused to be interviewed by the commission without Cheney, but he also had his lawyer there, and on the side of the investigators.
President, why are you and the Vice President insisting on appearing together before the 9/11 Commission?
Because the 9/11 Commission wants to ask us questions. That's why we're meeting, and I look forward to meeting with them and answering their questions.
Why you're appearing together rather than separately, which was their request?
Pause real quick.
Because it's a good chance.
Just so you guys know, when you're going to ask people questions under oath, I've never seen it before. We have 2 people. It's got to be one to make sure that the stories jive together. But the fact that he was able to do that and the fact that he insisted on having someone else with him to testify under oath should give you guys a bunch of alarm bells, right?
Oh.
But yeah, we can keep going.
For both of us to answer questions that the 9/11 Commission is looking forward to asking us, and I'm looking forward to answering them. Let's see.
Don't you think that the families deserve to have a transcript or to be able to see what you
Adam,
said?
you asked me that question yesterday. I got the same answer, yeah.
You're one of those 4 that gets to see these documents. Would that change your opinion? No. They don't want any more eyeballs to see their documents than they can possibly get away with. It's a scam. It's absolutely disgusting. The president has said only a minority of the commission can see a minority of the documents, and then they have to clear what they're going to say to the rest of the commission with the White House.
These blatant conflicts of interest should have been all over the news like a Tiger Woods sex scandal, but they were too busy promoting other things.
Oh shit! Go back just a second, and that I guess shows all the compromise situations, right? You got Richard Ben Venice represents Boeing, United Airlines. Tim Romer represents Boeing and Lockheed Martin. James Gorelick is a director of the United States United Technologies. John Lehman has large investments in Bally Corp, which has many U.S. military contracts. And then what is that? Fred Fielding is a lobbyist for United Air. Can you explain that a little bit more? How these people are compromising the situation?
Yeah, I mean, Fred Fielding's a lawyer for Blackwater and also George Bush himself. So George Bush's lawyer is on the investigative team into September 11th. Wow. And I'll add to it, to the story where, you know, he countersued the families. There's a very infamous.
Are all these guys Zionists, by the way, too? Looking at the last names.
Do you have to ask? Like,
yeah.
So there's this
those last names.
Infamous event in Fallujah where the contractors, like, charred bodies were hung up on a bridge. You remember that?
Yeah.
And those were Blackwater employees who the Iraqis had figured out their patterns going back and forth to the airport and ambushed them on that bridge and hung those bodies up as trophies. That wasn't out of the blue. That is because prior to that, there was a protest and Blackwater just shot into the crowd, like just started machine gunning civilians and killed 72 people.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And you can look, the 72 people killed in Iraqi protests by a private mercenary firm. And at this point, people didn't know what Blackwater was. That was our Wagner group, right? Jeremy Scahill, who did write an excellent book called Blackwater, Rise of the Mercenaries, was later essentially bought off by Piero Midyar to do nothing. Like, he used to have some great journalism, and then Pierre buys him. Even Glenn Greenwald went to work for Pierre for a while and basically disappeared for like 10 years. I think he has returned, but Jeremy's just fallen off a cliff. But before he got paid to shut his mouth, he did write an excellent book. I recommend everybody get Blackwater.
Okay.
It gets all into it. That book also points out how Richard Pearl was the point man to get troops in Azerbaijan who had a rule against having foreign military on their soil. Well, they're not military, they're contractors, right? And that was Blackwater's first big gig, was going into Azerbaijan.
Okay.
They changed their name to Z and then Academy with an I, but I still call them Blackwater. They had to keep rebranding themselves. They're right out of our backyard in North Carolina too. Eric Prince and these people, they're all Amway related and stuff. Hardcore, like super hardcore Catholic Christians, like, but it's awful. I mean, they really were Islamophobic, and I don't say that, like, people overuse that word. Anytime you criticize anybody that happens to be a Muslim, even though a lot of times it's legitimate, they just say that. But for real, they were. It's part of that whole kill a commie for Christ stuff from Vietnam. Like, it's a rollover from that kind of thinking, where they just wanted to kill some Tau heads or sand nibbas and, you know, that kind of filth. And they recruit these thugs. And Blackwater did the dirty work, but the entire military would pay for it. Anytime Blackwater went out, you know, with their night vision goggles and spying on Iraqi women, changing clothing and kicking in doors and abusing fathers in front of their children, all these horrible things they did. They don't see that as Blackwater. They're like, look what the Americans are doing. Look what the American military did. But our uniformed soldiers were at least doing less of that, or not at all. And it was a lot of Blackwater and also dim boys in Abu Ghraib that sodomized all those kids. Did you know this? Look up the Seymour Hersh report. This is the same guy that broke the story in the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. Broke the story on the pipeline that Russia didn't blow up, the Nord Stream line. Cy Hersh did a story. And this will chill you to the bone. Because in Abu Ghraib prison system in Iraq, they raped the sons of suspected insurgents and played the recording of them just completely humiliated and demasculated, their cries and screams for their mothers, who are also in prison, to try to give up their husbands' whereabouts and things. They've raped their kids.
Wow.
Sodomized all these boys. And then, of course, also in that jail, you have the hoods and electrocution and castration and popping people's eardrums and all manner of torture, dogs. And you know what they did is they ignored all that, and they had a conversation of the tail end about waterboarding and whether or not that's torture or enhanced interrogation, as they like to rename it. Of course it is. What about dry boarding, force feeding tubes, and all? You don't want to know all the disgusting shit that went on in that prison and goes on in Gitmo. They have a camp within a camp in Gitmo called Fort No. You don't want to go to Fort No, and that's the feeding tubes and the stuff they do to their skin and psychological torture. And it just, there's no point in it, right? Yeah. They just enjoy this or something. It's not like the ticking time bomb scenario from TV series 24 or whatever. They're just torturing these people. They got off on it, and a lot of you'll see a lot of people with Israeli tattoos and stuff where they didn't want to fight in the war. They didn't want to stand up to Iraq. But once they, they have no weapons, no clothing, no nothing, and they're helpless and they're in jail, then they want to go in there and torture them.
Yeah. Wow.
But they raped little kids. And our Congress, not all of it, but like John McCain and some of these people, they got to hear those tapes. And still nothing. And the only thing that put a stain on Abu Ghraib was Cy Hersh reporting on it, and the pictures got out. So you saw the you know, the guy with like the Black Klan hood on him, standing naked on a box with electrodes on his fingers or whatever.
Yeah.
And the pyramids of naked bodies and stuff. Like, oh, it's just like naked cheerleaders. No, it's not. And they didn't get mad about these people torturing or any of that. They got mad that they were like, hey, no cameras. I had a leak and this got erased too, but there was a soldier bragging about gang raping a 15-year-old Iraqi girl. And there's video of it, forcing her to fellatio these guys, and they're just passing her around. Terrible. And they were putting these trophy stuff on Live Leak and all, and like that was okay, but I got banned.
These were American soldiers that did this shit, or was this?
These were they're American-ish. I mean, they're contractors from El Salvador or wherever, you know. Yeah. Okay. So
Blackwater. Yep.
Triple Canopy too. I mean, DynCorp was involved. I mean, they got sued. Like they were drugging women, some of their own soldiers, some of their own female soldiers, and gang raping them. Put them in a containment, one of these containers they have where they brought this reconstruction that they got contracts for and then never did. The Biden family's involved in that too. One of them woke up, like I guess they didn't drug her enough in the middle of this horror show, and DynCorp got sued. Rumsfeld's involved in that. By the way, the death anniversary of Donald Rumsfeld was a couple days ago, so have a rum on ice. All these horror stories about Iraq. I mean, first of all, 1 million people are dead, right? They had already starved to death hundreds of thousands of people, mostly children, between the two wars. And you wonder why they're just terrorists, right? Imagine being, you know, especially if you're not that educated, but even if you were, you're some Arab Muslim guy and you're watching this complete humiliation, demasculization of your country, people starving to death. They took out the water treatment centers, which caused the Ebola and all these weird things to outbreak. Because they're like, oh, you can't chlorinate it because that could double and uses mustard gas, so blah, blah, blah. And you're the guys that sold Saddam the gas when he had war in Iran to begin with. Rumsfeld's shaking his hand. Farland's in the background laughing and stuff. I mean, it's just such a farce. There's no reporting on any of it. Yeah. First guy to show the video of the handshake was Michael Moore. And boy, he fell off a cliff too. But he did do that in the beginning. You know, at least he's very tribal. It's sports teams. You know, oh, the Republicans did it, but not the Democrats. No, it's both.
Yeah,
it absolutely is both. They destroyed that country, and you know, about 6,000 Americans got killed too. And they lie about the numbers. And when you add all the veteran suicides, it blows past that number, right?
Yep.
This is one of the most immoral and disgusting things. They invaded this nation based on lies about WMDs that they knew were not true. They knew it. Trump was right when he said that. He's like, you said there were weapons of mass destruction. You said you knew where they were, and there were none, and you knew there were none. He said that to Jeb Bush in South Carolina. He was right. They knew there were no WMDs. And they went in there and toppled that country and then tortured these people. And they purposely fostered sectarian violence between Sunni and Shia and Kurds, getting different Islamic factions to kill each other in cycles of revenge. And when that wasn't working, there's an incident where 2 British officers wearing wigs and dressed like, I think they dressed as Sunnis and they attacked Shia. It could have been the other way around. Doesn't matter. But they were dressed up as Arab Muslims. And they attacked a funeral of another faction, but they got caught, and they're actually British. The Brits used an armored vehicle to knock down the wall of the jail to get these guys out.
Wow.
Right. And so they were doing false flags in Iraq to encourage the Sunni Shia civil war by posing as one side and attacking the other to get that going, to kick that off. And Iraqis, during the occupation, they were dying every day, and usually 1 or 2 Americans got killed every day too. More died in the occupation of Iraq than in the hot war, by far.
Gotcha.
And it cost $6 trillion, all for Israel. They went after Saddam Hussein based on all this BS, and it was all for the Israelis. Every single fucking newspaper. And you saw Wolf Blitzer. He's a former AIPAC employee. And he gets the Situation Room on CNN, and he's talking about shock and awe. that little bastard. Everybody needs to see the debate between Wolf Blitzer and Norman Finkelstein. Norman Finkelstein is Jewish too, but he's not a Zionist.
Yeah.
Wolfowitz is. And I wish we had more Finkelsteins. You know, I wish more of the Jewish community would speak out. And people are like, well, why don't they? I'm like, they do. You just don't hear it. The same reason you don't hear anyone else get to speak out.
Yeah.
We don't have a voice. We don't run mass media.
Yeah.
We don't have billionaire criminals backed by a foreign state supporting us, right? It's hard to claw your way up. But Finkelstein took him to the woodshed. And that was mostly over the Palestine issue. But, you know, this is your head anchor at CNN, works for the Israeli lobby. Of course he spun everything. They didn't ever mention Israel in the War of Iraq.
Yeah.
Funny that, you know, the first Gulf War, the Scud missiles are going to Israel and Saudi Arabia. Unexplained. What's he got to do with them, right? Like, yeah. And the angle drilling in Kuwait, they knew, you know. So it's just this war got kicked off because of its association with 9/11. So we're going to tie that a nice bow. But I just want to take a moment to have some fucking sympathy for the people of Iraq and what happened to that country in both wars and sanctions that people ignore because they're so excited about their little 9/11 camp to talk about thermite or whatever. It's like, dude, take a moment and acknowledge what our country did to the Iraqi state. And they base that on lies.
Damn. Yeah. Holy shit.
Wow.
I did not see a lie detected.
Guys, we got 10K watching, man. Like the video, bro.
We got 10,000 y'all plus watching over on Rumble. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to the ANC report, check out Ryan Dawson on Rumble as well, because they canceled him everywhere else for saying shit like this. They don't want you guys to know. Let's go back to the
By the way, Cy Hirsch is Jewish too. I mean, the guy that uncovered the Iraqi scandal, right? This is I feel like I shouldn't have to say that because you shouldn't. But there, you know what happens when you criticize Zionism? They're going to be like, "Oh, it's anti-Semitic." Blah, 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 blah. Like, well, you know, the premier journalist that uncovered the torture scandal in Iraq was also Jewish. It has nothing to do with ethnicity or religion.
Yep.
This is about a political ideology of ethnic supremacy.
Yep. And there's a difference. And a lot of people don't understand that there's a difference between Judaism and Zionism. There's a big difference.
It's a difference between Islam and Al Qaeda too. I mean, duh.
Yeah. One's terrorist,
exactly. All right, let's keep running this clip right here, and then go through because we still got to cover the Tennessee cell.
We're still on 9/11 Commission Day. All right, I'll speed it up.
Yeah, because we still got to get through. We got to get through the Anthrax and then the Tennessee cell. So let's keep running this. Go ahead.
Noting other things. The 9/11 Commission was a cover-up. It was a total joke, a farce. Heck, why not allow PNAC members to do the investigation? They did. John Lehman, former Secretary of the Navy in 1987, while Jonathan Pollard was spying for Israel through naval intel, was also chosen to join the 9/11 conmen, and he was a PNAC signature. PNAC, the Project for a New American Century, was a neoconservative think tank from the American Enterprise Institute. Its members comprised Department of Defense officials and media. They pulled together older Israeli-centric plans from Odysee and IASVA's clean break papers to create their magnum opus, Rebuilding America's Defenses. There's been a lot of focus on lines from that particular document, but this narrow scope has overshadowed their other important works, particularly on Afghanistan and Iraq. I can't go over all of them. I have in previous films, but here's an overview. This is what the Lie Factory cranked out. Of course, these are also the men who lied about Prague, Atta, and Anthrax.
All right. Now go back. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So Chris, go ahead and scroll down here a bit.
You see that Saddam bin Laden connection? That was Gary Schmidt,
which is bullshit. Okay. So this is what does this?
Oh, you don't want to hit that one yet.
Okay.
We'll save that for last.
Okay. So Anthrax time.
Let's go.
All right. Let's roll into Anthrax because that's one of the big lies, right?
All right. Yeah. It was a whole big reason why we even went to war in the first place. So do you want us to run this video or did you have anything you want to say first?
Well, I'll just say quickly about PNAC, Project for a New American Century, was this Zionist think tank, and it's all of them boys almost. And they had a media outfit called the Weekly Standard Online, which got its seed money from Lockheed Martin. So this is a tie back to the MIC. I think it was Richard Cummings. He wrote a piece about it. It was in like Penthouse magazine or something. Nobody else would touch it, but it's called Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And so Lockheed finances William Crystal and Kagan, who create this Weekly Standard. And then all their writers are PNAC people, this Zionist think tank. And they start just churning out one lie after another about Saddam and bin Laden. And one of the big ones will be, well, guess what? Muhammad Atta, the ringleader, he met in Prague with senior Iraqi officials and they gave him anthrax. That officially connected Iraq to September 11th.
That was their big
and
thing.
It was a lie.
Yeah. That was their biggest.
And by the way, Robert Kagan's wife, Victoria Nuland, the premier architect for the war in Russia and Ukraine.
Bam. Oh,
yeah. Nuland.
Yep.
Kagan too.
All right, let's run this clip. Both Zionists.
You cannot stop us.
Yeah.
From 9/11, they also wrote Allah is great, and 9/11 2001 as well. Which is funny because it would later be the Israeli security forces claiming to have witnessed a transfer of anthrax from Iraqis to Al-Qaeda at a meeting in Prague.
Pause.
Possible.
Pause.
Okay. That can't just be like right there.
Yeah.
Israel said they witnessed Al-Qaeda getting anthrax from Iraq.
Cap.
No, they did not, because Iraq didn't have anthrax. Al-Qaeda didn't have anthrax. Iraq was not in Prague, and neither was Atta. The whole thing was bullshit.
So,
and it's crazy too because they were monitoring Muhammad Atta, and I'm gonna pull up a picture for him real quick.
Oh yeah, they had the whole Hamburg cell bugged.
They were watching Muhammad Atta the entire time. The CIA had eyes on him, and it is not true that he was. He went to the meeting in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken, but he didn't meet it with Iraqi officials.
He went to Sana'a. There was no Prague meeting. That was just, it was like some curveball weirdo that they
This
paid.
Muhammad Atta right here for the audience. Pull him up real quick, Chris. Thank you so much. This was the lead hijacker, guys, for 9/11. If I'm not mistaken, he's Egyptian, right? This guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look how dead in the eyes he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that Ramsey Youssef stare, you know?
Yep.
But isn't it crazy? Off of just one lie, you can start a whole war.
They started a war off of this guy allegedly meeting with Iraqi officials and getting anthrax. That was their biggest selling point.
Yeah. Well, look at this. If you know about psych warfare, look at this. This is the anthrax note, a copy of it, obviously.
There you go. Yep.
Look at it vertically. Death, Allah, America, Israel, great. They lied. And this is a very important note because, as I will spell out in the timeline, well, we'll see. I'll let it speak for itself.
Okay, we'll go back to the video then. But yeah, just to put a picture to a face to the name, that is Muhammad Atta, guys, who they allege met with Iraqi intelligence officials to get anthrax. And
he was on flight 11 and he was the pilot.
And it was Israeli intelligence that claimed that they saw this, which, come on, guys. Like, of course, they're going to say some BS like that because...
And the guy that brought that to the U.S. was James Woolsey, the former director of the CIA, comes back with this Prague story. James Woolsey, that Clinton hated but appointed anyway, was only ever in his position because of Epstein blackmail.
Boom. There you go. All right, let's keep going. It all connects, man. It all connects. So
welcome back.
And the first paper to write about it in the U.S., the New York Observer, which was owned by Charles Kushner.
Another one of them boys.
Yeah.
How'd you know?
Yeah, his son marries Trump's daughter. Anyway, keep going.
Since neither Iraq nor Al-Qaeda had anthrax, and there wasn't even a meeting in Prague for them to meet in, how does one witness a transfer of something at a meeting that didn't take place between two parties that didn't have it? The target choices of the military grade made in the USA anthrax were interesting as well. The two senators against the Patriot Act, Patrick Leahy on the Judiciary chair in a position to block it, the other Tom Daschle, the Senate Majority Leader, also calling to investigate 9/11, were sent the lethal spores, whereas warmongering Fox News and Judith Miller, a WMD liar, were sent hoax anthrax, so they claimed. Despite all these holes in the anthrax story, it gets far worse. A letter written to the Department of Justice jumped the gun trying to frame someone for the attacks. The problem being, it was mailed 2 days after the first anthrax had been sent, but long before any of the letters had been opened or reported on. Worst of all, even though by December of 2001, the FBI knew it was looking at domestic terrorism, the anthrax myth persisted about Iraq and Colin Powell used this scare tactic in his speech to the UN as evidence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, saying they could produce anthrax and kill thousands. Speaking about mobile weapons labs, a lie echoed by the now convicted criminal Judith Miller, who spent 85 days in jail over the Plain Libby affair, Powell said to the UN while holding a mock vial of anthrax.
For example, they can produce anthrax and botulinum toxins. In fact, they can produce enough dry biological agent in a single month to kill thousands upon thousands of people. And dry agents of this type is the most lethal form for human beings.
Cheney also reiterated this lie on Meet the Press, restating the same propaganda. The FBI ordered the Ames strain destroyed, and then went on a wild goose chase through different suspects who'd been pegged by the ADL, and ultimately landed on a guy, Bruce Ivins, who had an odd suicide, overdosing on Tylenol. Later evidence shows he could not have made the anthrax from his lab. Dr. Perry Meixel, also a prior suspect, also had a strange suicide. The notes sent with the anthrax read, "Death to America, death to Israel," automatically associating Israel's enemies with America's enemies. Because the attackers had written 9/11 and Praise Allah on the notes and mailed them from the same locations as the hijacker cells in the US, the anthrax attack was initially blamed on Al-Qaeda. The mainstream press never asked for evidence of the claims being made. They just repeated them obediently and blindly. Some were even dumb enough to take the Israelis at their word, as if Israel has never lied to the United States and would have no motive to implicate its enemies with such a tale. Not only that, but they compounded on that lie by adding that at this meeting, they also got anthrax from the Iraqis, and they blamed that on Al-Qaeda as well, all of which turned out to be lies. The London Times reported that Iraqis were seen passing anthrax to Al-Qaeda. Their sources?
Pause.
Israeli intelligence.
Boom.
So if you go back a little bit, you can see, go back a little bit. So that in the background is how bad the film was. You can barely read it. And then in the foreground, I'm just showing you what we could do when we clean it up. So you can see, it says hijacker given threat. You can't even read the rest. See how clean it is though after?
And
that's what we're trying to do with this whole film. Is
he's remaking that movie, which is going to be great. I'm gonna donate to it as well, bro, because people need to get this fucking shit.
Okay.
And I will add, in addition to the Patriot Act, Patrick Leahy had the Leahy Amendment, which would forbid all military aid to Israel. They wanted to kill him.
Oh, I believe that.
Yep.
All right, let's keep running it.
Yeah, they killed Bruce Ivins.
Their sources were Israeli intelligence. Here we can see the beginnings of a setup. With this lie, they connected 9/11 to Iraq. Yet there was no meeting in Prague. There were no Iraqis passing anthrax to hijackers. There were no Iraqis even talking to hijackers. Next, Iraq was accused of making biological weapons, including anthrax, in mobile weapons labs. This lie came from Judith Miller, who wrote about it in the New York Times. Judith Miller, the girlfriend of the lawyer for the Mossad, Louis Libby. Here's a woman who tried to blame both the 1993 World Trade Center attack as well as the Oklahoma City bombing on Iraqis. She claimed that Iraq was using mobile weapons labs to hide their biological weapons of mass destruction and was capable of producing anthrax. Remember, Miller was also a journalist who got a hoax letter of anthrax. It's interesting because the postmark on these letters, which had identical notes as the real anthrax letters, were sent before there was reporting about them, as they had not been received yet. So why would warmongering Judith Miller and Fox News be sent pretend attacks, and yet real anthrax was sent to others who opposed the Patriot Act and the war? The formula is simple. 1. State Al-Qaeda attacked the U.S. with anthrax. 2. State Iraq has biological and chemical weapons of mass destruction, including anthrax. 3. State that Al-Qaeda met with Iraq. 4. State that Iraq gave anthrax to Al-Qaeda. All of these statements are lies, but it leaves the public with the conclusion that Iraq and Al-Qaeda were working together.
The administration knows Hussein has vowed revenge. He has anthrax. He loves biological weapons. He has terrorist training camps, including 707, to practice on.
It wasn't just moles in the State Department and DOD impeding the FBI's investigation into 9/11 suspects. The FBI was impeding the FBI's investigation into 9/11. It's a stretch, but one could still claim maybe they're just trying to cover up their embarrassing failure and screw-ups to save face. Except there's absolutely no rationalization in the world for why the FBI would allow the destruction of Ames anthrax samples in Ames, Iowa. I'll let you hear the words of Francis Boyle in an interview with Boiling Frogs Post, the man who drafted the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989, Harvard Law School grad. Professor at the University of Illinois. We've never met, but he's coming up with the same conclusions.
Get an updated list from the CIA. And he said, well, we were working with people at Fort Detrick on this matter. And I said, well, Fort Detrick could very well be the problem here, not the solution. Soon thereafter, within a few weeks, the FBI authorized the destruction of the United States government's collection of Ames strain anthrax maintained out in Ames, Iowa. Mm-hmm. And that I was originally hired here to teach criminal law. That clearly was an obstruction of justice. That you would be able to take those Ames strains and reconstruct precisely who was involved in this attack. So it became very clear to me that the FBI, right from the get-go, was involved in a cover-up here of who really was behind the anthrax attacks. Then basically the FBI has been lying about it and covering it up. I don't believe Ivins did it. Even the people who work with him don't believe he did it. And by the way, I should also point out, Bowman was the same FBI guy who sabotaged the request by the FBI agents in Minneapolis, Rowley and the rest of them, to get a subpoena into Moussaoui's computer. He was the exact same guy.
That's right.
And Bowman had been ordered by someone to sabotage that subpoena into Moussaoui's computer. The argument that the FISA court, there wasn't enough evidence, that is total baloney. If you study everything about Moussaoui, there was more than enough evidence for the FISA court to issue a FISA warrant into his computer. Later on, then Bowman was promoted and given an award.
Not only that,
they usually
FISA,
rubber stamp those.
Yeah, exactly. FISA, just for you guys are wondering, but what the fuck is a FISA? Foreign Information Surveillance Act. I think it's like from the 70s. Basically, FISA is like the secret court system that you can use when it comes to counterespionage or national security, terrorism, etc. It's a different court system than a regular court because obviously you're typically dealing with classified stuff. It's much easier to get FISA warrants and FISA electronic surveillance and tap phones, etc. under the FISA Act than it is regularly, because you can go ahead and argue it's under national security. When you argue against national security, you're able to get things a lot easier. So the fact that they weren't able to get it, and they're referring to, if I'm not mistaken, Zacharias Moussaoui, right? That's who they're referring to?
Yeah, they've almost never said no to a FISA request, but one of the most important events ever. No, you can't look at his computer, right?
Exactly, which is weird. And he's the only person, if I'm not mistaken, that was prosecuted for the 9/11 attacks. Zacharias.
Yeah, and we did get information in those transcripts that was vital to Flight 93, because then you find out that, gee, where is Zaid Al-Jarrah? His voice isn't on here, and he was not piloting the plane. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
But god damn, they destroyed Ames anthrax samples in the middle of an anthrax investigation. That's Francis Boyle that's talking there. I mean, he wrote the bioterrorism, he was Reagan's guy. He's a doctor of philosophy, a lawyer. I mean, this guy knows what's up. Now, I said in that documentary that we had never met. I did interview him after I made this film, but at the time that I made it, that was true. I had never talked to him.
Gotcha.
But he was talking to Sibel Edmonds there, and they're called Newsbud now. I'm not Boiling Frogs, but whatever. This is crucial. In the middle of an anthrax investigation that is domestic, that had nothing to do with Iraq or Al Qaeda, you're out there destroying samples of anthrax.
Yeah.
And then David Kelly gets suicided in the woods. The last person he talked to, by the way, was Judith Miller. She has a copy, like a hoax anthrax sent to her, but there's an identical note like this that, you know, death to American Israel in her letter as the other letter. And look, you cannot claim that it's a copycat attack because there's no way they would know what to put on the note. There'd been no reporting on it. So why on earth would Al-Qaeda send a hoax letter to a Judith Miller? They didn't, right? She just wanted to say, look, a letter was sent to me. Everyone listened to me. They must be scared of what I have to say. Of course, she blames Iraq for everything, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't from Al-Qaeda. The people that actually sent the anthrax were all, and why would Bruce Ivins do that either, right? Oh, I'm going to send some hoax letters out. Like, and how did whoever sent it know where Al-Qaeda was? How did you know where in Florida and New Jersey to send them from to make it look like, oh, it's from this cell? Somebody was living next door to them, as we covered in the previous episode, right? Somebody knew exactly where to mail those letters from. And they basically signed it. Death to America and Israel. Gee, I wonder who wrote that. Iran, you know.
So Ryan, so we'll go. Do you want to switch over now to the Tennessee cell?
Well, there's one more on the anthrax.
Okay, let's run it because it's 8 a.m. now, and I want to make sure that we cover all of this.
8 p.m.
Yeah.
We have 1 hour, right?
Yeah, we got an hour.
All right, I can. We're fine.
All right, let's run to the next clip, Chris, please.
So is anthrax not?
So look at this, by the way. See the title there? The United States District Court of Southern Florida. And I'm just showing you. This is where the document is.
Civil case.
Okay, there's the case number and stuff. Scroll. That's page 1. Just go down because I get to the juicy stuff. I highlighted it in yellow. All right, right there in yellow.
Yep.
It shows you he's exonerated. The smallest possible estimate of liquid solution used to prepare the anthrax letter was at least 3 to 7 times larger than the liquid contents, whatever RMR, whatever, which contained more of a lighter fluid. So he did not have the means to add this accelerant to anthrax, which was found in the most deadly letters sent to senators and journalists, right? Tom Brokaw and Leahy and Daschle. Okay, Ivins didn't have the equipment or the means. He also could not have worked in Maryland and then, you know, driven a car to Florida and driven a car to New Jersey and been in all these places without purchasing air tickets and show back up at work in Maryland. He could not have been there. So either Ivins didn't do it or he didn't do it alone because somebody else would have had to been in Florida to mail those. He couldn't have been in 2 places at once. That's a real easy thing that gives him an alibi. Like, well, he's here in Maryland and somebody's mailing stuff in Florida. He couldn't have gotten down to Florida and back so fast. That should have been an end of the case right there. Nope. They went after him and then allegedly killed himself all by himself before the trial. And then post-mortem, he's exonerated. Oh, looks like he didn't even have the equipment to make this anyway. Oh, well, are they interested in keeping this open and saying, well, gee, if it wasn't Ivins, who did it? Where did it come from? And damn, they had a letter from Philip Zachariah, the same guy who's caught on fucking film stealing anthrax in the 90s, saying it's Ayad Assad. And they know that it was him because he had all these details about Assad's life that other people didn't have. And they did not even interview that guy.
Wow.
Do you think if they didn't, well, he didn't commit suicide, this guy that died from Chris Ivins, do you think he would have exposed anything to, you know, the world? If he spoke?
No, I don't think he knew who did it. He's just like, it wasn't me, and they were pinning it on him. You know, he just became this patsy. But they needed to close the case. They're like, yeah, they had to blame somebody at Dietrich, right? So they go profile the scientists. 3 of them are dead, or 2 of them are dead. And then another guy, David Kelly, that actually researched the claims about mobile weapons labs that could produce anthrax, comes back and says, yeah, there aren't any mobile weapons labs producing anthrax. They find him dead in the woods.
Randomly.
Damn. Well, yeah.
All right. Let's keep
obviously Corona.
It's crazy, bro. Y'all are seeing. Did you want us to play this from the beginning, right?
This is 1:29. So
at what 1:29 play it? Okay. Let's enlarge it.
You can just play it from the beginning, but it's real fast. It's
okay. Yeah, rewind it. Chris, please, from the beginning. All right.
Was behind 9/11.
On September 18th, 2 anthrax letters were mailed. Both came from New Jersey. One had the Death to America and Death to Israel letter inside of it, and it was addressed to Tom Brokaw of NBC. This wouldn't be opened until October 12th. The other letter was sent to a New York Post editor and would not be opened until October 17th. 2 days later, still without any letters having been opened yet, on September 20th, 3 letters were mailed. 2 of them were hoax letters sent from Florida. One was to Troxler, Howard Troxler, and the other was to Judith Miller. Troxler opened his on October 9th, Miller opened hers on October 12th. These were hoax letters. However, the letter inside, the written letter inside, had the same rhetoric as the second letter to Tom Brokaw. The second letter to Tom Brokaw also came on September 20th and was opened on October 5th. On September 26th, still, no letters have been opened, no reports have been made. Philip Zach, somebody who got caught stealing anthrax from a lab in Maryland, sends a letter to the Justice Department blaming Ayad Assad. That letter is opened on October 2nd. How this person knew about anthrax attacks and who to blame it on is a mystery because there hadn't been any reporting on the anthrax attacks yet.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right. So
and I keep going with that timeline. I actually have drawn that out on poster board and everything, but now we have a nice, crisp, good-looking NUMEC level anthrax map. It's that right there, rolled up in red and yellow.
Mm-hmm.
That tells you all the whole thing. Now they basically mailed 2 letters to Brokaw. The second one had that goofy note about Israel in it.
Yeah.
And the same exact note is in Miller's letter.
Okay.
And there's no way like somebody saw that and then copied it because none of it had been open and they're mailed on the same day anyway.
Shit.
Yep.
Okay. Do you need this video here or do you want to go to Tennessee?
Let's hit this. It's only 2 minutes. I won't add detail.
Okay. This is more. Okay. Yeah. I mean, at this point, this is irrefutable evidence that the
dead to rights already
was a whole fucking hoax as a ploy to go invade Iraq.
It's part of the whole agenda, man.
Yeah,
honestly.
Wild.
And then Miller wrote about the mobile labs, right? She starts saying, "Oh, look at these mobile weapon labs," and that's what Colin Powell went in there. And his speech was, Tennant and Libby wrote that.
Yeah.
And Tennant's involved in 9/11 deeply.
All right, let's do it. Let's enlarge this thing and do it.
Also on October 2nd, the Patriot Act is introduced, and it is opposed by Senator Daschle and Senator Leahy, who are in a position to prevent it from passing. Leahy is the chairman of the Judicial Committee and can block the bill. Daschle is also in a position to block the bill. Daschle and Leahy opposed the Patriot Act on October 6th, and sometime between October 6th and 9th, we can't be sure because the 7th was Sunday and the 8th was Columbus Day, anthrax was mailed to Tom Daschle and Patrick Leahy, and it was the deadliest anthrax so far and meant to kill them. Daschle would open his letter on October 15th, and Leahy's, because it was misrouted, would not be opened until November. At least one other anthrax letter had been mailed about September 21st or 23rd. They're not sure because it had already been opened. It was in the bag of mail and contaminated all the rest of the letters, so they don't have a clear postmark. But around that date, it gets opened in October 3rd, causes several people to get sick, and on October 4th, Robert Stephen dies from anthrax, the first person to die from anthrax in the U.S. since the 1970s. And on October 5th, it is reported in the news. This is the first report in the news about the anthrax. James Woolsey, Judith Miller, Gary Schmidt, Robert Kagan, William Crystal will all be blaming it on Iraq.
Of course.
On October 15th, John McCain will go on David Letterman, associating Iraq to Al-Qaeda.
If I could just move very quickly, the second phase is Iraq. There is some indication, and I don't have the conclusions, but some of this anthrax may, and I emphasize may have come from Iraq.
Oh, is that right? Bin Laden did not have the authority or power to force FBI agents off of his trail. Bin Laden didn't have the means to set up a false flag and steal anthrax from within American labs and take credit for it with his hijackers and associate it to Iraq to falsely lead America into believing that Iraq and Al-Qaeda were together and started war there to bog down American forces. The U.S. and Israel did that all on their own.
Wow.
There you go.
Holy shit, man.
I mean, it's a script. John McCain's, it's the second phase. What was the first phase? The first phase is the war in Afghanistan.
Yep.
Out of chaos.
Right? Like they waited till that stuff got open. It wasn't open when they thought it was going to be, because of when they grounded the planes on 9/11, they grounded all the mail too. Right.
Mm.
And so there was a backlog of mail. So when they start mailing stuff later, it was a mess. But they waited till it went through, and you can look in PNAC's paper on July 30th. They've got a picture of bin Laden and Saddam, and they went on the talk shows. I mean, why is John McCain on with Letterman? Right? That's Mockingbird level stuff. Like, let's put McCain on there and have him give the case that some of the anthrax might have come from Iraq. Gary Schmidt and Robert Kagan both say so. You know,
yeah.
Iraq didn't have mobile weapons labs. They didn't have anthrax. In fact, neither did Al-Qaeda. The Israelis sent anthrax and tried to kill the senators that were opposing their interests.
Now y'all see why we're on Rumble. We can't. That shit will get you canceled on YouTube.
If they can't shut you up, they will kill you.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the Tennessee.
Why I live in a.
Preface it with anything, Ryan, before we, or do you want to go like right?
I can talk about that ad nauseum, but I'm gonna just we'll run out of time again. So I look. There's a lot. It's in the film, so go see it or go see the remake if we get it financed. Yeah. But just below, I do want to show that Los Angeles Times article.
Yeah,
Scott Horton sent this to me because you have to get these on the Wayback Wind Machine. By the way,
yeah, you can't get
there. It is. Israeli intelligence officials also reportedly have been pushing the possibility of an Iraqi connection terrorist attacks. And then they say that they go on and say Atta in Prague, right? It's amazing. Germany's Blid concluded yesterday, they quoted unidentified, right? Go down to the yellow. Israeli intelligence sources are saying Atta received anthrax spores from Iraqi agents.
Stop the cap.
Yeah, we know that.
That's who fucking lied. Israel said they witnessed, and they're like, well, look, our ally saw it. No, they didn't. It's impossible to witness an event that didn't happen between two parties that didn't have anthrax.
Yep. And they have the most interest to topple Iraq. So, of course, they're going to fucking lie about that shit because it's in their best national security interest. Because we talked about this with Ritter as well. Saddam threatened to bomb the fuck out of Israel if
he shot scuds at him.
Yeah.
And, you know, Czech intelligence, they got blamed too. And they quickly said, nope, we didn't. We don't have evidence for this.
Why
I think I put that in there too.
We can have America do it for you.
Yep. That's why they were so excited when those towers hit. That's why they were dancing. Those Israelis were dancing because they knew, they knew
the whole plot.
America's going to fight the war for us because like we talked about this with Ryan. Guys, the Israeli military does not have the capability to actually fight an on-ground war. Nope. They have defense capability, but they don't necessarily have war capability because number one, it's a small country. Number two, that's why all their people have to be involved in the military for 2 years, mandatory service, because they don't have the capacity to take on casualties.
Yep.
So
that's why they lost in 06 to Hezbollah. They can't stomach the casualties, and
that's a small little terrorist organization. They can't even fight them off. You know what I mean?
Is it terrorist to defend your? I mean, I don't know. Like, it's like. When you look at the first World Trade Center bombing and the fact that anthrax was stolen by Philip Zach and Miriam Ripley back then, it seemed like the plot was to topple one tower into the other and follow it up with a biological attack. But because they parked the truck in the wrong place and botched that whole operation, and Josie Hadassah's apartment was tied to it and all that, she's from Israel, they pulled an audible and they're like, all right, don't send the anthrax. But the spores were stolen. It's just a repeat. They recycled it. I mean, it's the same lies. They recycled lies from like 1998, 99. That's what Kagan and these guys are writing about. And all these policy papers, just smearing Saddam and Iraq. And that was used as the justification about WMDs to invade Iraq. And it wasn't just America. Like, they had this huge coalition. But the French with Jacques Chirac and the Russians opposed it. And so that started this anti-French sentiment. Why? And they had freedom fries and all that. And Jacques Chirac's English teacher, Phil Garmy, was the the father of my roommate in college. Coincident. But, France, to its credit, said no on the Iraq War, but they quickly got subverted after that. And, peace be upon them now. They're in massive riots in France. But I think all of Europe's about to see a French-style rioting with the gas prices going up and basically the boomerang effect of their sanctions on Russia over this war in Ukraine. Again, Zelensky and these goons, all of the Jewish refugees out of Ukraine are welcome in Israel. But if you're not Jewish, you don't get to go. I mean, they decided whether or not to take in refugees based on what ethnic group they belong to. That is fucked up.
Yep. No, it's wild.
That is how that state is run.
All right. So you want us to just run the video, or do you want to
Did someone say something stupid about Lincoln? That conspiracy is not true. Lincoln paid for the war by selling war bonds, which were repaid by gold they stole from the South. Had nothing to do with greenbacks. There was no Federal Reserve until 1913. No, he did not create another central bank. Man, dude, he definitely Grant was a dog lover. That's true. Grant loved dogs more than a person ought to. But no, Lincoln was pro banker. I mean, Lincoln didn't even want to start the war until the bankers out of Boston and Philly and New York got in his ear. It was his Secretary of Treasury and State that really pushed him to send warships to South Carolina. I know that's another bag of worms or can of worms, but
bro,
dude,
I don't want to get
they lie about the Civil War like they lie about every other fucking war. I mean,
yeah.
All right,
we'll cover that too for y'all. But let's get into the Tennessee stuff.
Create a war?
His greenbacks were worth 35 cents by the end of the war. It didn't work like that. He was not anti-banker or anything like that.
Okay.
All right. Let's go. Next? So now this is a Tennessee cell. So just so you guys know, we talked about how there were some Israelis involved with 9/11, the dancing Israelis that were based out of New York, but there was a whole other cell of them guys in Tennessee, and no one talks about these guys.
Well, they were in New York. They get caught in Tennessee, but yeah.
Sorry. And they also were a part of a moving van company as well.
They're part of a fake company for heating and plumbing and fire suppression that ended up just being a guy's residential address, Sergei Denko. And I didn't give you the file, but it's on my website. I have from the district attorney all these documents, like they're all on ANC report.
The prosecutor. Okay. All right.
Her name's Barbara.
All right, let's run this clip here. So
for time's sake, I'm just gonna say trust me. Like I'll get it to you if you want it. But
if you can give me the link, throw me the link in Telegram.
Surprisingly simple. You just need to follow.
I'd have to go find them.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Rumble.
From the cops about how many people managed to get out of the building before they collapsed?
No, absolutely not. But there's also, I don't know if it was the case now, but I do know that one of the towers had a major elevator that went all the way to the top that was malfunctioning and has been malfunctioning for at least a month. They've been having a lot of trouble with that.
Aside from the mysterious elevator workers of the oddly chronically broken elevators and the Israeli movers contracted by Zim Shipping Company, itself partly Israeli state-owned, which broke a $50,000 lease in the World Trade Center to relocate to Virginia a week before 9/11, who else had suspicious access to the towers? In 2002, a simple case of fraud over fake IDs in Tennessee led to the arrest of 6 Middle Eastern men and revealed damning information about 9/11, about men claiming to have done work in the basement of the towers with fake passes. The key witness, herself an accomplice in the ID fraud, was killed a day before her trial date. Catherine Smith, a Department of Motor Vehicles employee, had been working with Khalid Otala from Jerusalem to provide Tennessee license, which do not require social security numbers, for 5 other men. The FBI, working on a tip, arrested Otala outside the DMV after he purchased the IDs from Smith. They had been monitoring Catherine Smith's house. She had also bought her car from Otala, one she would be found dead inside of later.
Smith's charred body was found inside the remains of her burned 1992 Acura, a car she had bought from Otala. Breathless witnesses told authorities the car, going at a slow rate of speed, rammed into a utility pole. A gas container was found in the back seat of the car. An autopsy declared Smith died of smoke inhalation from the fire inside the car that ignited before the crash. Unusual, suspicious, bizarre, all of the aforementioned.
The following group, Mohammed Fairs, Abdel Muhsin Hamad, Mustafa Abu Shahi, and Omar Kayata, were all arrested as they were also waiting outside for Odala to return from the DMV. The underlings told investors that Khalid or Sakur Hamad, the cousin of Abdul Muhsin Hamad, could get the IDs. Oddly, the two ringleaders would be released while the underlings had the book thrown at them. Sakir Hamad, who had shared a residence with Odala Khalid, was arrested, and on his person, he had a pass granting him entry into the 6 underground levels of World Trade Center 1. It was dated September 5th, 2001.
Hold on,
Khalid
stop.
Odala had also driven.
So you're telling me, just a recap for the so you got, and these guys, they have Arab names, but they're all Israeli, right? If I'm not mistaken.
They're from the leaders from Jerusalem.
Okay.
And a lot of the lower ranking people are just useful idiots. I mean, you saw this with the Whitner kidnapping and stuff.
So you see here, guys, you got the ringleader here. He sold a car to a DMV employee, right? That was giving them fake licenses.
Basically gave it to her. Like he sold it for almost nothing.
So she ends up dead in this car because she was going to be involved in this trial and she might have to testify against them. And then you find out that the ringleader had a permit to be in the World Trade Center on September 5th, 2001, days before the towers hit. What the
For the 6 lowest levels, yep.
On the 6 lowest levels. And we know that the firefighters and the witnesses that were there said that they heard bombs going off in the
basement.
World Trade Center basement, which again mimics what? The 1993 World Trade Center bombings done by Ramzi Youssef. And again, people always cry about, oh, well, it's controlled demolition, controlled demolition. Look, man. And
Fire chief found a van with bombs in it.
Yeah.
Reported it on 9/11. Rick Sanchez talked about it. Pat Dawson talked about it.
And this is what the thermite guys and all the people saying it's controlled demolitions will not acknowledge, that there were bombs that went off in the basement. Irrefutable, because all the witnesses are saying it. Then on top of that, on Washington Bridge, George Washington Bridge, they find a van filled with explosives driven by Israelis. What?
The dancing Israelis had traces of explosives in their van that had been, the bomb sipping dogs gave the cue that there had been some explosives there that had been removed. The dog can still find the traces. But beyond all that, these guys end up sabotaging the fire prevention systems.
So wait, let's finish watching the video and then we'll talk about it.
That maximizes the damage done by fire. And believe it or not, fire absolutely can burn a building down all by itself.
Yeah,
it absolutely can. Everyone's like, oh, never steel can do it. Bullshit. It absolutely can. And you were overselling your argument. It didn't mean it did. But when you act like, oh, that's not even possible. Yes, it is. Right. And they're like, what about the Madrid building? I'm like, yeah, what about the Madrid building? Everything above the 22nd floor collapsed. You want to know why? Because they couldn't reach above the 22nd floor with the hoses. And that's what fire does. It burns things down.
All right. You were
saying Glasgow building burned down from fire, steel building and ran. Like, anyway, go ahead.
This is major news, right? And then ultimately, the ringleaders get to walk for free. Is that crazy?
Yeah, you're going to see right now.
Dude, look how much money they paid to get him out. And it's, well, anyway.
Let's keep playing it and then we'll talk about it after. But I just wanted to draw everyone's attention that the ringleader of this fake driver license cell in Tennessee, not only did the person that got him the licenses die mysteriously, that was set to testify, but also the ringleader himself was at the World Trade Center days before the planes hit. So let's go ahead and
well, Ahmad also shared a room with an Israeli art student in Colorado.
Bam. Which we talked about before.
Art students.
All right. Chris, can you enlarge it and then keep playing?
In a truck from New York to Tennessee on 9/11. Hamad claimed that he had been doing work on the sprinkler systems for a couple of days, and that is why he had a pass. The problem with that, as Alan Hicks, the spokesperson of the Port Authority of New York, pointed out, the New York Port Authority handles its own work on such systems, and no one there had contracted Hamad. Hamad gave police a card for magic heating and plumbing. He also had a card at the time of his arrest. In court, his father produced a letter signed by Sergei Davidenko for Denko Mechanical, verifying both Sahira Mohammed and his cousin's employment. Davidenko told the New York Times Hamad had been working in the World Trade Center for him for a couple of days. The problem is, there was no magic heating and plumbing or Denko Mechanical. There was an obsolete business license for Denko, and the address for the office was simply Davidenko's residential address. Quite similar to the elevator operator's fiasco.
With Smith's horrendous death and 4 months of investigation into the backgrounds of the men turning up nothing except for the fact 3 of them were illegal aliens, public interest finally faded. 4 of the men were eventually deported. Another was quietly returned back to his home in New York. None were implicated in Smith's death because they were in custody at the time. Speculation then led to the only conclusion possible.
One woman who may have been able to shed light on the entire matter was Catherine Smith, but the day before her trial, she had a car accident and died. Actually, her body had been burned inside her car, but the gas tank failed to ignite. Witnesses had seen Smith ablaze in her car, and investigators found gasoline in her clothing. FBI agent Susan Nash said Smith had been murdered. The unresolved questions about 9/11 and Smith's death had nothing outside of the circumstantial to do with the trial over fake IDs, however. Ahmad was released on a $250,000 bail. What kind of truck driver or repairman has that kind of money? Dotala, the middleman, was released hours after being sentenced. Why was Khalid released? And why wasn't there a follow-up investigation into Denko Mechanical?
Hey. Go ahead, fresh spit.
Yeah, it gets worse.
So, man, that is a bombshell, bro. You got people working on the World Trade Center.
Hey, Alex Jones, where are you with that story? Right? No one knows this happened.
Damn.
Do you know how hard it was to find footage of those people and get a picture of her car and all that? You would have to know it happened already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
I look for it.
I'm sitting here screaming at the wall. I'm like, they got caught. Okay, so something else to understand about the towers is the sprinkler systems worked on relay systems like every 31 floors.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 of them and a big one in the basement. You don't have to go to every floor and fuck up the sprinklers. All you need to do is sabotage the relay system, and then the water won't get to the top. And that appears to be what they were doing.
Yeah. Wow.
And if they're in one tower, that some similar cell was in the other tower and just didn't get caught.
Yeah, we just caught the first one. So because both towers went down in almost an identical fashion. So, and then the other big thing also is that there was no record that the Port Authority had approved that guy to be there, correct?
Yeah, and you'd have to have a tenant hire them or something, but nobody hired them in the basement levels. And it gets worse. Okay, so
reason to be there, no proof. Or sorry,
there's only an obsolete business license and a guy whose residential address is the business address. He and another guy named David Connell and Sergey Denko, or it's David Inko too. He's got a big middle name, whatever. They also got caught forging fire suppression credentials. So what they did is they had reference letters that were fake, that they were saying, oh, this university or this accreditation system is verifying that, we're certified in fire suppression tactics. It was all fake. So they created a fake company, faked the credentials, hired these people somehow to go do work on the sprinkler systems, which failed on 9/11, by the way, which would ensure the maximum damage by fire, both from the plane and or any explosives that had been put below. And there is some evidence that there were explosives put below with the truck bombs. And so as we've gone through with, but even if there weren't, that alone, sabotaging the fire prevention systems to maximize fire from the airplanes is enough.
I just can't believe they could walk. Well, one of them could walk free like that, and then it's
what kind of truck driver's got $250,000?
That's the other thing. How the hell did he get out of jail? Who paid for his bond? Who got him out on $250,000?
That's $1 million question.
You know what I mean?
I'm telling you, bro. Exactly. That's a setup, bro.
It's a $6 million question.
You know, and here's the other thing too. I want the people to know, because once again, no one talks about Israeli links to 9/11. I mean, we've been exposing it now with the dancing Israelis, this DEA, our students. Now we got the cell out of Tennessee. I mean, bro, where there's smoke, there's typically fire. Like, and the thing also, and we're gonna probably do an episode debunking a lot of the bullshit. But this is where we get into the whole thing where you got people 9/11 conspiracy theorists that basically say, oh, what about Building 7? It was a controlled demolition. They snuck in and put dynamite on all the floors so that it would fall. Look, guys, I understand the need to want to know why the building went down the way that it did, but Ryan says this, and I agree with him 100%. Do you care how the building goes down, or are you more interested in the people that were responsible for bringing it down? That's what we're focused on. We're focused on the people responsible for bringing it down and the why, not how the building went down.
I actually asked what were the explosives. It was RDX. Okay, so it's not C4, it's not thermite. They don't even use thermite on buildings they blow up on purpose. They use shape charges. This is unreliable. You can't use thermite as a timing mechanism to pop things floor by floor. Just shut the fuck up with that. It's just
Building 7,
you say what happened, and there's a million other camps that go as far as like holograms or whatever. They just want to say their spiel about nanothermite because they saw a video on YouTube. It's like, shut up. You don't know any of their names. You don't know any of the intelligence agencies. You don't know how they're financed. You don't know the whole operation. You don't know the history. You don't know how it's tied to Iraq. You saw a video online. You think you're an expert. You're fucking dumb. We have adults here, right? We had people caught and arrested who had illegal access to the World Trade Center, who did illegal work on the sprinkler systems from a company that wasn't accredited to do work on the sprinkler systems, who forged letters to create the thing. And it all ties back to foreign country A. They have unexplained bail. And Catherine Smith is murdered in a car that was given to her by Khalid Odala before she could go to trial while all these guys are in custody. And somebody else went and murdered her. And the FBI concluded she was murdered.
Yeah.
And Susan Nash found the traces of gas in her clothing. She was very popular, too. She had children. There were over 200 people at her funeral. She was not a suicidal woman.
Dude, here's another thing, too, that's crazy, right? I keep hearing idiots talk about Building 7, Building 7, Building 7. And you'll see videos on Building 7 on YouTube, but you will not see this shit on YouTube. You will not hear about the Tennessee
Oh,
cell.
you won't see the south side of that building either. They always show the north side in the beginning and say pockets of fire. They don't show you around 5 in the afternoon when every single floor was on fire and it's missing a corner.
Dude, and it's just crazy to me how so many people keep saying Building 7, Building 7, Building 7. And then I'm like, you fucking retards. Let's talk about who was responsible, not we'll talk about, oh yeah, enlarge me. We got you, Ryan. Don't worry about it.
I had a kid go in the room, so
no, you good. Don't worry about it. People are so much more concerned with Building 7 and how it went down and it being a controlled demolition versus who the fuck is in control that was responsible for these buildings going down. That's what amazes me. And you'll find videos on YouTube talking about Building 7 randomly going down, but you will never find videos on YouTube talking about the Tennessee cell, the van systems, Dominic Scooter, none of this shit. You're not going to hear any dancing Israelis. You can't even find videos on YouTube talking about this shit at all. So,
dude, with Dominic Suter, a guy that reported on it, and he passed away 2019, June 27th.
Suter did?
Justin Raimondo from antiwar.com. He found the suspect list, because this is what's funny. They'll classify a list, but not the copies that they sent in other languages to Italy, to Argentina and stuff, you can read them in Spanish and Italian, and it's almost the same thing because the name's a name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the FBI's official 9/11 suspect list is Dominic Suter.
Yep.
Right? And so you can publish that. Cryptomy had it, and Justin, I believe, got it from Cryptomy, who just got basically the foreign language copies of the same list that they sent out to other agencies that were not classified. And he reports on it. Dominic Suter flees. He leaves, the story. He left furniture stranded. They closed the business on a random Tuesday. And his employees were already quitting and leaving the country because they had airline tickets to go all over the world.
And real quick recap for the people. Dominic Suter was the owner of
Urban Moving Systems.
Urban Moving Systems in New York, which is
the 3 guys celebrating and the other 2 they picked up. So
his employees.
Yep, his employees, and he's the one, him or Yaron Schmel is the one that says come up to the top where they are about to take down the second tower.
So yeah, and check this out. It's interesting because right after the
FBI investigated Raimondo for reporting it. Right.
Oh.
And they went through antiwar.com, it's Angela Keaton and Eric and these guys. Their website got put under FBI scrutiny because of Justin's reports.
Oh.
And then I found reports where the FBI is sitting there talking about Raimondo. They're worried about, like, how does he know this? Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So that tells you that Dominic Suter was definitely on that target list alongside Osama bin Laden. And the thing you guys got to know is that this guy, Dominic Suter, who was the president of this urban moving systems that employed these dancing Israelis, he fled to Israel immediately after the FBI did a raid at his warehouse where he had computers and all this other shit.
16 hard drives. Yeah. Like you need that many to move
got a
furniture.
suspicious wire like a month or so before 9/11. He got like a suspicious wire of like $100,000, $200,000.
Oh, he got $500,000.
And
Follow the money, bro.
And why do you need all those hard drives, bro? You're a freaking
why are you
mover.
getting $500,000 from the Israeli government a month before 9/11 and you run a moving company?
But can we admit that all these, for example, crimes that are being done, these people are being let go like nothing, and it's like, who's getting them out? Like, how is this even possible? If this was a regular American, bro, they'd be in jail.
They'd be done.
They'd be jail or
They'd be done.
death penalty.
Yo, this shit is crazy. Anything else on the Tennessee cell that you want to talk about, Ryan? I mean, I think that's like a crazy bombshell that one.
I think I pretty much nailed it there. It's with 20 minutes. I don't want to keep going more details. I'll spur out on this stuff.
Bro.
So
You'll never hear this on the news at all.
Yeah, you won't.
Hell no.
Shout out to Ryan for.
You won't hear this on 9/11 truth circles either. They don't want to talk about people who had prior access to the tower and did illegal work. Like,
You're one of
because
the few guys that talks about the Israeli connection,
Ryan,
bro.
I see why you moved to Japan though, because you'll be a target.
oh yeah, I got death threats and all that fun. Yeah.
But, okay, Ryan, can you admit this though? There's a list of people that are on target, for example, spreading the truth from maybe the CIA or FBI going on right now, like a list of people that are targets, you would say, spreading the truth?
Yeah. It starts with the blanket censorship.
Mm.
And if you get a level of reach, like if I had the reach that say Andrew Tate had, I'd had a bullet in my head. But before I got there, they would put me in prison for something. They would just make something up.
Or to say you're a pedo, or you to say, for example,
So they did the Scott Ritter.
all these things, because once again, your credibility drops the moment you like able to erase this or all this stuff. So they know what they're doing, bro.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So what was? Did we have anything else that we wanted to
Julian
hit?
Assange, they accused him of rape and all that. It's not true.
Yeah. They did.
Edward Snowden exiled for telling the truth about the NSA. And I'm not saying I'm like them, but like I didn't have their reach. If I was on Time Magazine and stuff like Julian Assange, and people had to access to all the stuff I know about the Iraq War, 9/11, or any number of topics, I would definitely get thrown in jail.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie. This might sound fucked up, but like, I'm actually glad we didn't get that big, bro. Because, bro, you can imagine us doing this at like,
oh no, we'd be
40K live viewers, bro.
Yeah, no, hell no. You'll get,
we're like a small pocket of like truth now. Which
Yeah,
is kind of like
you don't want to get too big with knowledge like this. So it's fine, man. The smart ones are in here watching. We got over 10,000 y'all watching right now on Rumble.
Yeah.
You guys obviously are based and understand what the fuck is going on, because I'll tell you guys this: you can't talk about 9/11 for real without talking about Israel. And the thing is that no one else wants to touch Israel when it comes to 9/11. No one. No, Ryan, to be honest, bro, I got to give you your flowers. You're the only person I know that talks about 9/11 and connects the Israeli, the Saudi Arabian, the Iraqi, all these other links into it to paint a full picture of what the fuck is going on 9/11. Everyone else is saying bullshit like it was for war, it was for oil, it was Al Qaeda only. The CIA was involved.
Well, my favorite plagiarist did get into the dancing Israelis, but none of the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, I basically started this, and there are some others that talk about it, and there are people in my circle that talk about it. Adam Fitzgerald's very good on this. Nelson Martin's very good on this. I mean, he dug up a lot of the stuff on Flight 23. It's just you'll never hear about these people, right?
They're all canceled.
My name got out because I was the first person to make a movie about it. But I wrote an article about it called "Iraq 9/11 PNAC: All Roads Lead to Israel," and 800,000 people read that article. But that's still not a lot. But that is a lot for a forum, not even using social media. That's big numbers. The censorship works, but the worse than the censorship, I think, is the kookification. So what happens is you get a topic like September 11th or a school shooting or Corona or something. You get these assholes that'll blame Corona on 5G or say viruses aren't real or whatever. And you get these assholes saying there were no planes on 9/11 or a missile at the Pentagon or they shot down Flight 93, just dumb stuff. So that it's like, when I first met Scott Ritter, when I first met a lot of people, I know they're rolling their eyes going, oh God, another 9/11 truth kook. Because the only version of it they've ever heard is the Alex Jones stuff, right? Which is all over the place. Crisis actors. I mean, just ridiculous crap. And I'm like, no, I'm not one of those people. I have a view about September 11th that Al-Qaeda was not wholly separate from intelligence agencies and never has been. And that they had a hand in this event and they lied about Iraq and they connected that through Anthrax. This is all provable. But I can't get my foot in the door because of all these ass clowns that just want to talk about CD and airplane denial and whatever. They created a tar baby out of the whole topic. And they did the same thing with Corona. There's legit pushback on the vaccine mandates and the efficacy of this particular vaccine about Corona and how harmful it could be and stats on disease and all that. But you can't have a nuanced view because the light switch brains, which are all A or B, they think viruses aren't real and and it's you got graphene chips in your blood and blah, it's stupid shit. And so it makes anyone else that criticizes the government's version of that disease appear to be one of these lunatics. And they did the same thing to 9/11. Their best method of covering 9/11 up, what prevents the truth about 9/11 from being revealed more than anything, is 9/11 truth.
Yeah.
We are changing Alex Jones and all these people. And I don't think Alex did it on purpose. I think the guy just has no filter, you know, and people start whispering in his ear because they knew he had a big presence and megaphone and they kept pushing on him until he said it. And he said, and you know, he shit the bed because he got this completely wrong. And he never criticizes Israel, you know, unless he packs it with like MI6 CIA Mossad, Luciferians, you know, the dude's nuts. And but you know, he's talking about earthquake machines and microwaving RFID chips in $20 bills and crisis actors, and he thinks school shootings are fake. Like, why would you fucking listen to this guy? But it's because he's the only one you got to see. Right, that's who they put in the front. Right, he replaced Bill Cooper. Let this fucking asshole tell you a bunch of stuff, and then you end up with Loose Change and Richard Gage and Judy Wood, and it just keeps getting dumber and dumber each year. Like Loose Change was bad. The only thing they got correct about September 11th was the date, but Judy Wood is worse. Right, dustification and dew weapons and stuff, direct energy weapon. Blah. Yeah, I mean, they take pictures of, like, you know, the picture where you see all these charred cars, that you're seeing a row of charred cars after the tow trucks pull them out and place them there. That's why it looks like that. It's simple. And if you go to try to talk to the police and firemen about 9/11, they don't want to talk to anyone anymore because they've been harassed and hounded by these fucking ass clowns that are talking about missiles and stuff so much.
Yeah.
That they're just done. They're like, no, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
They made it so hard.
The community in itself is the worst enemy of itself because so many people have crazy stories that allow pretty much make the public say, I'm not taking anyone seriously. So when we talk about this shit, we talk about Israeli involvement. They're like, whoa, hold on. So that's what we're trying to do here is 9/11 for adults.
And that is
they say stuff that's not 9/11 truth for grown-ups. They don't even use their own words. It's like Larry Silverstein said, Pullet's an industry term to mean demolish a building. It's straight from Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And they'll say like, well, Building 7, Jane Stanley announced that before it had fallen and she's on the BBC. And like, I know, I've heard it. That's not even your own thought. Like that, I can reiterate everything they're about to say. No building never fell from fire. I know all the stuff they would write in comments and stuff. Because you didn't even come up with that. That is spoon fed to you by Operation Mockingbird. People are assets like Jones. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay. And I can debunk every single one of those claims, but it's going to suck up another 6 hours of my life to explain the Rolls-Royce engine and the light poles and the hole and the cameras and like I got to address all that stuff before I can even start saying what happened. What we did is the opposite. I just started telling you what happened on 9/11. We're going to save the last episode to debunk all the clowns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I hate it drains my soul to deal with 9/11 cougars every day. And I have to every day, every fucking day. I have somebody say there was only a 16-foot hole in the Pentagon and it had to smash through 6 rings. Like, No, it didn't. There are no rings on the bottom 2 floors, and it was a 90-foot hole. You're looking at the exit hole, not the entry.
Bam.
It just, oh, you had 87 cameras. That's from an affidavit to talk about how many cameras involved in 9/11, not the Pentagon. Usually don't point a fucking camera at a random wall. They have them facing the doors where people come in and out. It just, I can't even.
It's fine.
Anyway, we'll get to that. I want to talk about FBI foreknowledge before we run out of time.
Yeah. Let's do that because it's already 8:49 here. So that I knew there was one more thing we had to cover. Let's talk about the FBI foreknowledge.
Can you get to the FNF2?
Yeah,
and it's the bottom video. It's real short, and if it's long, I'll just tell you what happened. But
all right, let's definitely talk about this.
This is crucial, and I actually, since I made that film to now, figured out some more information that's exclusive to Fresh and Fit.
Bam. Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about this. Okay,
all right.
Yep. Let's run it. Let's enlarge it, and then just let us know if you need to pause it, Ryan.
Defeating a criminal who tries to attack you is surprisingly simple.
Romania.
You just need to follow the Romanian Rambos.
Left alone. Former FBI translator and whistleblower Sibel Edmonds uncovered that condemning foreknowledge of the 9/11 attacks was missed by the FBI. Of course, it's not hard to miss when you're not even looking. Rather than investigating her findings, her superiors at the FBI covered it up, and she was released. One document in particular of recorded conversations she uncovers shed more light about the full scale of the 9/11 attack in New York. In July of 2001, 2 months before 9/11, suspects were having blueprints of skyscrapers sent by courier to an obscure region west of Baluchistan. Not only blueprints for skyscrapers, but also building and bridge plans and composites. Details are in her book, Classified Woman. Not only were they interested in the buildings, but also a bridge. This fits with the people who had fake passes in the World Trade Centers, as well as those who were in a van full of bombs at the George Washington Bridge. It's also similar to the botched 1993 World Trade Center bombing, which consisted of a truck bomb at the towers and plans to blow up the Holland Tunnel. Funny how no one on the day of 9/11 thought of bringing up the Muslim Brotherhood, allegedly who solely was responsible for the last World Trade Center bombing, or even the 1993 bombing itself at all. Instead, the press compared it to Pearl Harbor and knew almost immediately that it was Osama bin Laden. Anthrax was also stolen from Fort Detrick, the same lab, just months prior to 1993's attack as well. And colleague Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of 9/11, was the uncle for Ramzi Youssef, the ringleader of the 93 bombings, and he escaped and later bombed a plane in Japan. But let's ignore the long relationship between the Muslim Brotherhood and the CIA.
I mean, right there, she's talking about a courier in Baluchistan that delivered blueprints for skyscrapers and also a bridge, probably George Washington Bridge.
Bam. Which we had talked about and showed you guys news clippings showing that the FBI did arrest someone on the George Washington Bridge with explosives, and that was happened on the night of 9/11.
You can't make this up.
Can't make this up, bro.
Yeah.
But let me give you some details too.
Yeah.
I'm just jumping in because I see the clock running, but Sibel worked in the Washington field office, and she speaks Turkish, Azerbaijani, which is a Turkic language, and Farsi, and of course English. She wasn't even allowed to say which languages she could speak because that was part of her gag order, right? But what had happened, and I want everyone to listen to this, 4 months before 9/11, the FBI was warned by an informant from Iran. So Iran had a intelligence officer in charge of gathering intelligence on Afghanistan, and he becomes an FBI informant. And this person told the FBI field office very specifically that Osama bin Laden was planning an attack, that he had these cells from Afghanistan, that they were going to attack with airplanes, that their agents were already in the US, because a lot of them entered in the end of March, beginning of April, right? So he comes and he tells them, bin Laden's going to attack you. He's got agents in the US, going to hit with airplanes, and the attack's going to be within months.
Okay.
And now you know these guys are going to flight schools and stuff and all that. Now, what does the FBI do with this? And I won't just say the FBI. I'll give you the names. The special agent in charge, his name was Thomas Fields.
Okay.
Thomas Fields didn't take any action because there were 2 FBI agents and a translator, and they were all told to keep quiet. So not only did they ignore the information, they told the people that delivered the information, the informant, 2 FBI agents and a translator, to shut up.
Wow.
And yeah,
okay.
and the
And
translator's name was
this 9 days.
Baruz Sarshar.
Okay.
And Sarshar should be considered a hero because he at least tried to do the right thing. He reported this in writing to Robert Mueller.
Okay.
Right.
Director.
Well, what do you think Robert Mueller did? Nothing.
Yeah.
And it was also in writing to the Department of Justice IG, and his name was Glenn Fine. And Glenn Fine didn't do anything either. So there you go. Thomas Fields, Robert Mueller, and Glenn Fine sat on damning information about 9/11 from an Iranian informant, and they told their underlings be quiet about it.
And this is 9 days before 9/11, right?
This is months before 9/11.
Okay, months before.
4 months before 9/11, they knew all about this.
Shit.
One of the head, like the boss of the translators department or section, whatever you call it, his name is Mike Figelty. And this guy squashed 2. Okay, let me explain how translations work here. There's like a summary and a detailed when you're just going through chatter. A lot of it's just crap, right?
Yeah.
Well, one woman, there's no way she could have known this till after 9/11.
Mhm.
But she's going through and she gives the summary, which said like, oh yeah, one of these 9/11 suspects, this other guy, they discussed real estate, right? Well, that's the summary. But if you look at the details, no, there was a courier with specific blueprints about skyscrapers in New York and a bridge, right? That's not just some real estate stuff. But before 9/11, you're like, oh, this is boring. He's got some blueprints, building a bridge. But after the fact, when you go back and look at it, you're like, would you like the detailed transcript now? Because while they had bugged the phone in jail that one of these suspects is using, and he's bragging and celebrating about the attacks after the fact. And he's the one that has this information about the blueprints and the courier. They didn't want to know anything about it.
Wow.
Right. So Bell gets then, and she's reviewing all this and finds the details. Is like, hey, look at what I noticed. Figelli was like, no, that we were accepting the original translation. Like, why? It's going to embarrass this girl. It's not embarrassing to the other translators. She couldn't have known how important this was until afterward, right? But they're admitting this in jail. And here's the real kicker. As I said in that little clip, Mark Grossman from the state, Mark Grossman.
Yeah.
Heavily embedded with the Turks, this woman named Melik Dickerson. She and Mike Figelli shared top secret documents with groups outside the FBI. That's already illegal. They were giving information to the American Turkish Council and AIPAC. Yeah, our best friends, right?
Yep.
And there's overlap there with what the ATC actually does. But Mark Grossman was witnessed talking with Pearl and some others, neocons, about how they needed to get these 9/11 suspects, people that were targets of the FBI, needed to be sent out of the country before they spilled the beans.
Wow.
What do you mean before they spill the beans? You want to get FBI suspects out of the country before they spill the beans? How do you know that they know what the beans are? And what do you mean? If they're Al-Qaeda suspects, the beans would be, yeah, Al-Qaeda did 9/11. Let's catch all of them, right? Let's figure out who else helped in this operation. No, they targets of the FBI. Like, now, which targets of the FBI who were official 9/11 suspects did leave the country?
Souter.
Dominic Souter and the rest. Yeah, these boys, right? Who would Mark Grossman want to protect? Probably not Bin Laden. Probably not any of that. Like, who you fucking know who it was.
Yep.
And that's the guy in the State Department. And he's first of all, he's working with two foreign lobbies because AIPAC's a foreign lobby. I don't care what they call it, American. The second letter is Israel, right?
and the fact, here's the other thing. They killed RFK and John F. Kennedy for wanting to register these Zionist organizations under FAR, the Foreign Agent Registration Act. A lot of people,
they wanted to inspect the Mona.
That would expose everything.
That and then also it would put them in a bad spot because if they have to register as foreign agents, it fucks up their ability to gather money and do the type of lobbying that they want to do. And John F.
RFK supported right of return too. That was a no-no.
He wanted them to register as foreign agents, and what happens?
He knew
Kennedy dies a month later, and then RFK gets killed as well when he tells the Zionists, "You guys have to register as foreign agents." Bro, it's amazing to me how
Ben Gurion resigned to stall and create a moratorium when they were inspecting Dimona. And you know what? RFK sent John Hayden in there anyway, so they wouldn't let him in the Negev desert to expect what they wanted. Mordecai Vanunu blows the whistle and shows the warheads anyway.
Yep.
But what we found out in declassified documents, when Richard Helms was there, that Hayden had tested the flora and fauna around Dimona and found 97.7% enriched uranium. That's from the Nautilus program for nuclear submarines from the United States, the only one that made that.
Yep.
Zalman Shapiro and those boys were stealing uranium out of Apollo, Pennsylvania, and shipping it to Israel. And they're using zip, and that involves Anastasia and Lansky and a lot of the mob people that I know Myron's covered. They were running Red Hook and sending this stuff. They would put things, not only uranium, but other conventional weapons too. And that's a long story. Greenspun involves a lot of these people. And it really ties to Iran-Contra and the Cuban Missile Crisis or the Bay of Pigs, because part of the reason Bay of Pigs failed is not because of lack of air support. It's the opposite. It's a lack of ground support because the weapons that were supposed to be there weren't there because they've been diverted to Israel.
Right.
And the whole reason for the Sandinista-Contra conflict was Israel protecting the Somoza dynasty that had diverted weapons to Israel to get around the War Assets Administration, Arms Export Control Acts and things. Simon and Glenn, they just circumvented this stuff through third parties and got weapons to butcher Palestinians. That's a long story. That's in NUMEC. That's another piece of the puzzle.
Next week
and
for y'all.
Look, NUMEC drifts right. The Sunborn Institute is the precursor to the mega group which set up the Epstein blackmail rings.
Well, do you have something, bro?
Ryan,
I know I'm red pill machine gunning right now, but I had like a minute left, so it's like
I have a theory, Ryan. Just correct me if I'm wrong. I think personally the U.S. has a tie to Israel where they have something that we're scared of, and to kind of combat that, we're giving them whatever they want. Am I wrong, or like, am I far-fetched for that? What do you think?
Well, they've got from Bobby Baker to Epstein, they have had sexual blackmail on key politicians. And they've got wiretaps. They have the ability to spy on your phone, so they can grab dirt on whoever they want.
Got it.
And it's not like they even have to have their arm twisted. A lot of people at the top are just criminals, and they're ideologically in line with whatever can help them profiteer. As long as they get a piece of the pie, they don't care. And that's every government. It's the Canadians, it's the US, it's the British, whatever. It's the Five Eyes. Like, they all go along with it because they personally profit and they don't have any national interest in mind. Israel has a national interest in mind, but the US is atomized. It's all about their own personal commercial interest. It's not about what's in the interest of the American state or the quality of life for American people or standard of living or the welfare, with a small W. Like, no, it's Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Pfizer. Like, they want personal profits off of conflicts, and they don't care. Another huge flaw is, and this is my hypothesis, I really honestly think the FBI and even the CIA, they don't have enough Arab translators, and they really lean and rely on the Saudis and the Israelis to give them information, and they both take advantage of that.
Yeah, man.
There you go.
Dude, Ryan, I don't really know what else to say, man. This was a fantastic broadcast. You can't talk about 9/11 if you're not going to talk about Israel, and everyone is way too scared to talk about Israeli involvement with 9/11. It's irrefutable now. We've done a 3-part series showing y'all all the Israeli links between advancing Israelis, the Tennessee cells. You got a whole bunch of Zionists that are involved in the 9/11 Commission to cover it up. You got the Saudi Arabians, right, who also have their hands dirty in this situation, doing a dry run in 1999.
Zellico fired Lessman because she got information on the Saudis.
Anthrax hoaxes. Like, bro, this is man, this is crazy shit. And again, no one wants to talk about this for fear of cancellation when it comes to Israeli involvement in 9/11. They have their hooks so deep in to American politics. I mean, AIPAC has on their website, guys, if you go on AIPAC's website, they literally have there to advertise 95% of our candidates win their general elections. Pretty much, if you
because they're so deeply tied to mass media.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not saying something crass like Jews own the media. Look, there's overlapping. Well, yeah, there's Zionists, obviously. Like that's exactly. We shouldn't have to say that every time. It's like, oh, it's not all Saudi Arabians. Like, no shit. Of course, not all Arabs, not all Muslims. Like, I know
people are stupid.
But man, when it comes to Jews, because they have that Holocaust horror in their mind, they're like, were you saying something about the Chosenites? I'm like, well, everybody does bad things, including Israelis.
Yep.
And the more you can get away with it, more you're going to do. And they throw that accusation, and there are actual anti-Semites too. I mean, some people that criticize Israel are anti-Semitic, but most often that is not the case. It's just people don't hate you because you're Jewish; they hate you because of how you behave.
Yeah.
And if you're going to colonize your neighbors the way you do the Palestinians and just bulldoze down people's homes, annex territory, and all manner of terrorism, hitting the USS Liberty, hitting the SS Patria. 55 British sailors killed in that event, 34 in the Liberty, blowing up hotels, blowing up an embassy, throwing grenades, and putting Palestinians in cages and parading them around in Jerusalem, beheading 280 people, Deir Yassin, the flattening of Jenin. Although they just lost in Jenin last week, 7 armored vehicles got taken out by IEDs from Al-Quds. Look, Israel. If you care about Israel, if you care about the Jewish state as a preservation of culture and history and religion, you should not support the Zionists because they are on a path of self-destruction.
Yeah.
Hezbollah is gaining. Iran has hypersonic missiles now. U.S. power is waning, and Israel's bitten off more than it can chew. It's got the tiger by the tail, and everyone can see what their future is, and it's not bright.
Yeah.
And so this is why they're freaking out, right? They're losing in Ukraine. Okay. People are starting to understand the Zionist grip on US media.
Yeah.
And it's been that way since they killed JFK. And that's the thing they have on everybody, because there was collusion in that event. And it's sort of like, if we go down, so do you.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it was David Phillips and James Jesus Angleton, the Dulles brothers, Shackley, these guys that orchestrated the JFK assassination, it's straight up tied with the Israelis. And so it's like do or die. Johnson was sleeping with Matilda Krim, right? That's an Irgun terrorist agent. That's what he was doing on
Johnson, who was the U.S. president, by the way, is who he's talking about. Lyndon B. Johnson, to be clear for y'all, was sleeping with
LBJ
terrorist when he was in office, and he and the USS Liberty, which was an American
that's on his watch
spy ship, was bombed by Israeli planes, and he basically put a gag order on all the surviving Navy guys that were on that ship that they could not speak about it. But we know that it was Israel that bombed us back in 1967. But Lyndon B. Johnson,
the signal intelligence proved they knew it was an American ship. They tried to say, first they tried to blame it on Egypt. That didn't work. Then they said, oh, we thought it was an Egyptian ship. No, you didn't. And that, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole Liberty thing because it would take forever, but Dead in the Water is a pretty good documentary on that. And I've talked about it. And I put a piece of it in NUMEC too. Everybody should see that film. Myron's going to release it on YouTube, or it is released like next Thursday, I think.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, y'all should watch that. It's on Rumble now. I mean, I'm fine if you come to my channel and watch it. But
watch it on Ryan's if you want to wait.
The way it is, YouTube has the eyeballs. That's just how it is for now. But we're trying to use that as an on-ramp to build up Rumble.
Yep.
Like Ted Kaczynski said, you got to use technology to beat technology in the beginning.
So Ryan, where can I find you, brother?
Yeah.
Well, actually, do we have chats to read?
So I'm the anti-neocon, ANC Report. That's like anti-neocon, ancreport.com. I'm still on Twitter, knock on wood. My name is ryliberty, R-Y, and then the word liberty. I have a Substack, Ryan Dawson, and I've got a Rumble, Ryan Dawson Films, Ryan Dawson Clips, and just Ryan Dawson. I have 3
And all
channels.
his links are below as well, guys. Go support him. So I could fly through these chats real quick. All right, I'm gonna read these chats real quick, Ryan. I don't know how much if you have to leave right now, but I'll read them real fast. If you look with Wikipedia Christian feminist, you get an overview of 7 names. If you look J feminist, you get a list of 150. Got them glasses on, boys? Hey, man, I see what it is. That's true.
From They Live.
Yeah, the feminism was definitely propaganda pushed by them boys. One of the biggest feminists was actually one of them boys, if you know what I'm talking about. What happened?
Transgender too.
Where did they go? Chris Bum. We talked about that.
Yeah.
We got Maverick Media goes. First off, W. Dawson. Secondly, do you think the citizens of East Palestine, Ohio, wish their town had been named East Israel? Bet those toxic chemicals would have been cleaned up immediately. Hashtag them boys. All right. Yeah, that's
Look
funny.
how they spelled Israel.
Yeah, with a bell.
The bell. Hey, Myron. This is from Rift. Goes, hey, Fresh. I think we all want to know why you had to leave yesterday.
You're gonna see. Coming up soon.
Okay, fair enough.
He had to change his smoke detector.
Like Chris.
Walter Myron, happy
Yeah.
Canada Day, July 1st, 1867. Thank you so
Shout out
much.
to you, man.
And then we got big player JD goes, Ryan, what do you think about the Richard Gage, Scott Ritter, and Alex Jones? By the way, they took down Richard Gage interview with PBD podcast. They did take that down. He did kind of touch on it. I mean, what on Richard Gage?
Richard Gage is a fucking kook. And like he even admitted to Josh Blakeney, he said, we don't talk about Israel because it's bad for the brand.
There you go.
And he's still pushing the missile crap, even when Chandler and even his own group AE 9/11 now admits a plane hit the Pentagon. He's still selling wolf tickets.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's not gonna see. And whenever someone says that it's bad for the brand, you stop fucking with them because
He even admitted it to Colleen Harding. He said, yeah, like we just deal with the physics. If you want to know who did it and why, go to Ryan Dawson. And I did not compliment him back. I'm like, you deal with the physics? You didn't get that right either. I mean, you're still saying they did this thing. I think it was on the Discovery Channel or National Geographic or something like that, where they set up like 6 rings of the Pentagon and tested it to see what would go through. And of course it goes through, but it doesn't matter. I mean, like you can't, it doesn't matter how many architects you have when you don't even get the architecture right. The rings, the Pentagon's shaped like a crown. It's like, you know, the rings are all on the top. So when you see it from the aerial view, you see these rings.
Yeah.
The bottom floors don't have rings, and there's 2 basement levels too.
Yeah.
It smashed through one wall and a bunch of sheetrock and then punched out the C ring. It's nothing fantastic.
Yeah.
The fucking plane's still in the building. The DNA of all the passengers is at Walter Reed. Like, there's overwhelming evidence. It's like, but I didn't see a slow motion video of the.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Richard Gage is probably one of the biggest conspiracy
The
theorists.
biggest kooks. Richard Gage and Jason Burmis are the only 2 dummies that are still holding on to that bullshit when everyone else is giving it up.
Yeah, all controlled demolition, guys. They talk about the physics, and in my head, I don't give a fuck about the physics. Who was behind 9/11? We know who it was. It was Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the deep state of the United States. That's what the fuck it was, man. Jaime
That Dick Cheney refused to shoot down the plane that was headed toward the Pentagon. And that's in Norman Mineta's testimony, saying the plane's 30 miles out, 20 miles out, right? Like, well, hold on a second. What was 20 miles out? Surely a missile wasn't doing circles around Virginia. It's like, well, what did he refuse to shoot down if you don't think there was an airplane? And you know what they say? They're like, oh, the airplane came all the way there and then whoop and went up and then they hit it with a missile. I'm like, okay, and where did the plane go? Everyone witnessed the plane go to the Pentagon. No one witnessed it fly away from the Pentagon because it went into the fucking Pentagon. Like, their own bullshit is not even consistent with their other bullshit. Like, you can't have the Cheney, like Cheney doing that implicates the U.S. government. That's the vice president of the United States refusing to shoot down a plane. Right. But when you act like there is no plane, he's exonerated. So is Nawif al-Hazmi. So is Khalid al-Midhar. So is their connections to Saudi Arabia through Bayoumi. All that disappears when you don't have planes. Or you think the hijacker is still alive, or they're crisis actors or holograms, whatever dumb crap they have.
That's why they let the hologram bullshit on YouTube, because if you believe that the planes weren't real, it would not link Dick Cheney, it will not link the Saudis, it will not link Israel. They want you to think that a plane did not hit the Pentagon. But we have irrefutable proof, by the way, which on the next episode when we cover 9/11.
Oh, I will show you the debris. They're like, where did it go? Have you not seen the scrapyard? The buildings did not dustify. They did not disappear. They did not liquidate. Flight 93 didn't disappear either. Like, look at that hole. Where's the plane? Like, they recovered 93% of that plane.
Guys. We have the proof. We got
it's in giant fucking dumpsters of windows and everything.
Like, bodies, the plane parts, everything. We're going to show you guys all the pictures that a plane hit the fucking Pentagon. And for all these idiots that say it was a missile, you're low IQ, you're stupid, and you believe the propaganda, because if they tell you that a missile hit or a hologram or some other bullshit, they can go ahead and lie and say, oh no, Dick Cheney, the vice president of the United States, didn't call to not shoot that fucking plane down, which implicates
I would say they're naive rather than stupid, but when someone shows you the debris and all the evidence and then you still hold to the missile thing because your ego's involved, then you're stupid.
Yeah.
All right.
Jamie Gonzalez.
We got almost 11,000 watching on Rumble, so we got a smart amount of people that know what the fuck really went down on 9/11. Fresh bringing them thanks from Colombia. Okay, Jaime Gonzalez. Cian Thomas goes, thanks for providing all these information interviews lately. Yesterday one was amazing and very insightful. We got you, man. We're bringing the truth tellers here. Scott Ritter, Ryan Dawson, etc. We're going to bring Nick Fuentes on July 7th. That's going to be fucking crazy. Hopefully we don't get canceled. Only got 2 hours into the Ritter episode before you guys went live, and I already feel like I know more than 95% of the world already on Rumble, so I don't miss a beat. Yeah, if you're watching interviews like this, man, you guys are literally going to be...
You should watch Ritter and I talk to each other. We've done that too. We should do a
panel.
In
you
Miami.
You're coming here in August, right? When you come in August, I'll have Ritter come down as well, and we'll do a whole fucking geopolitics sit down in studio. It's gonna be fucking lit. I think the audience would love that shit,
I'm
man.
gonna be in Orlando, so I'm trying to set up the logistics to get to Miami. So like, definitely get down there.
Down here,
I think
bro.
we should get Larry Johnson. He lives in Florida. He knows just as much as Ritter about Ukraine.
Yo, Ryan, you shouldn't say where you're going, bro. This nigga, man.
Yeah, don't say where you're going.
Don't say you're going, bro.
All right, let's get Inner Circle goes. Ryan, why don't you let people repost your videos and share it? Bring more clout. I was going to, but I would need your permission.
Oh, you might have
99.9999% of my videos are free and shareable.
Yeah.
The only one I say don't fuck with is Empire Unmasked.
Yeah,
because that is my income. And I put out War by Deception, which summarizes all the information and it's free. And I put out Wars Always by Deception. So like, just share those.
Yeah.
Andrew,
I don't see the point. Like, why do you sell anything? I'm like, what do you think? I just eat the air? Like, fuck off. Like,
you got to live too, guys.
Yeah, man.
Damn.
Andrew Graff, was the Protocols of the Elders of Zion written by one of them boys or by the Russians?
Both.
Oh, both. Okay.
The Russian them boys.
Charles Gidiu goes, did them boys give the Soviet Union the bomb in exchange for recognition?
Ooh.
They gave them the tech for delivery and miniaturization.
Did Pollard give that?
Oh man, I wanted to talk about Pollard so bad when you guys were talking about him yesterday.
Ritter, dude, the biggest spy in American history that compromised the most fucking information was an Israeli spy, and no one fucking talks about it.
You should get Jeff Blankford on your show to talk about Pollard. Pollard gave away the first strike plans on the Soviet Union.
Worst spy leak in U.S. history. And what? We put him in prison for 30 years and let him go back on a jet back.
He went and kissed the ground, private flight to Israel, meets the prime minister, kisses the dirt.
Dude.
And the story is always, oh, he wasn't a Zionist. He was just a mercenary. He just did it for the money. Bullshit.
Hey man, if you want to do a crime, just be Jewish.
Yeah, bro.
If you want to get away with a crime, just involve the Israelis and everyone will look away.
Clip.
Yeah, we're gonna get canceled. Yeah, we gonna get canceled now. Thank you, Fresh. That clip. Inner Circle Trader, what happened, Ryan? If you would have continued to live in the U.S., would they arrest or take you out? Recently, I've discovered the FBI installs CP on certain people on arrest.
Yeah, bro. I'm telling you, bro. They watch you.
And then
I would have had a car accident or something.
Yeah, you would have died like that. Like what was that chick's name that got killed by the burning? Yeah. Best guest, Ryan knows the shit. He definitely does, man.
Well, they beat the shit out of her and burned her. I mean, yeah.
I will say this though: if you get Tesla, bro, you probably will die. So it's electric.
Oh shit, them boys goes. Do we know what happened to the dancing Israelis? I tried doing some research and couldn't find anything past 2002. It's like they disappeared. They went back to Israel, bro.
Yeah,
they let them back.
71 days, and they went. I have information on what they're doing now.
And two of them, just so you guys know, quick little recap. When the FBI interviewed them, two of them had ties back to Israeli intelligence, and some of them failed the polygraph test when they were questioned by the FBI.
Of course, but then they're free.
Yep.
Ryan,
they're explosive experts too.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Lauren
one of them was an explosive expert.
Yeah, it's on his LinkedIn.
Like, bro,
he got married on 9/11. The next 9/11, he decided to have a wedding.
Ryan, have you seen the X-Files derivative called The Lone Gunman Pilot that predicted 9/11 attacks 6 months prior to 9/11? It aired in March 2001, and it discussed the need for a new Cold War.
Yeah,
I've
seen it.
Casey,
the Iron Man comic too.
Yeah, you should boycott the Yehudis. Donate the Give Send Go 9/11. Support the remastering of the 5-hour 9/11 ANC film, The Empire Unmasked. Yes, it's the top of the link, guys. Donate. I'm gonna
real easy to remember. GiveSendGo.com/9/11. If I don't care if you give $5, $1, whatever, just make sure that when your little comment to say "fuck Lincoln."
There you go. Redfield goes, Dawson drops the truth, period. Listen and learn. Absolutely he does. KGB Josh goes, W podcast, W Ryan, W Scott Ritter, and W Colonel Douglas for exposing the neocons. Okay.
All right.
And
Doug
then
McGregor's very good. Yeah.
Did Israel try to eliminate Ryan before?
They financially sabotaged my life and kicked me off of everything.
That's true. Yeah. You and Nick Fuentes.
Bro, you think
Nick Fuentes is open racist, dude. Like he actually does break the rules. Now he's got a lot of good ideas, America First, and a lot of overlap, but like, I mean, he just shits in the bed with that ethnic nepotism and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that works. Look at Canada, New Zealand, Australia. Being white really acted as a defense for wokeness.
Yeah. What's good, gents? Talk about the elevators. One elevator was able to be repaired by Bat Chief Oriel Palmer to the 44th floor. He was able to climb to the impact zone. Myron got his FDNY patch. Love y'all. Appreciate that, my friend. And then last one here, Top Shy goes to Ryan Dawson. We got, if not hundreds of retired or active members of FDNY and FDNY watching. FNet Productions, love your work. It's time to expose. Building 7 was a provoked collapse. Them boys. Hey, man. It is what it is, man.
When you talk to the fire department, they were not surprised that Building 7 fell at all. They're actually surprised it stood as long as it did.
Yeah.
And I'll address the Silverstein. I hate defending this guy because he's such a snake and he called Netanyahu every day and he didn't go there in the morning. But they decided to pull out because a lot of firemen had already died that morning in the other towers, and they didn't want to risk losing anyone else in Building 7. So they decided just let it burn.
Yeah.
Right.
Damn. All right. Well, guys,
go support Ryan, man.
Go support Ryan. All his links are below. Go get an
top.
Anthrax map. We talked about Anthrax, but if you're more interested in the legacy behind that and the story between the Anthrax stuff, go ahead and check them out. Links are all below, man. And we're gonna have Ryan back probably on next Friday. We'll talk about debunking all the BS. We'll talk about the Pentagon, the fake news. We're gonna address
fake news. Yeah, 9/11 truth is fake news.
We're gonna debunk every single 9/11 myth for you guys next Friday. Ryan, I'll give you the last word before we close out, man.
You know, Donald Trump did talk about dancing Middle Easterners on Jones's show, but he thought it was Arabs, and Jones did not correct him. And you fucking know that Alex knows that it was Israelis.
Oh, he definitely does. Alex knows. Cool. Guys, we love y'all. Check out Ryan's stuff below. 3-part series is complete, so we're going to have the 4th one on the debunking the bullshit. We'll catch you guys here with some girls in about 40 minutes or so. Love y'all.
Hey, ask him when was September 11th? No, say when was 9/11?
Yeah, we'll ask him that. All right, bro. Later. Peace, guys.
Peace.
I ran so far.